As gamers, we all have memories about the game we've played while growing up. No matter your age, if you played video games when you were young, you kept some of these experiences in your mind. You might even be in the process of creating those memories. Even if not all the games we've played were blockbusters, we still have fond memories of the time we spent on them. These experiences are important because it shapes the way you look at video game as you grow up and can influence your taste and perspective of the next game you will look for. For me, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, meaning that I have made those memories primarily in the PS1 and N64 era. One of the games that made a big impression on me was Digimon World 2, a dungeon crawler / monster collecting RPG for the PlayStation 1. That was my first experience of these genres, now amongst my favorites. Contrary to popular criticism, I have an unconditional love for this title and thick nostalgia goggles that prevent me from focusing too much on its glaring flaws, letting me discover and enjoy the multiple mechanics Digimon World 2 had to offer. Released in Japan in late June 2000 and in North America in May of the following year, Bandai is responsible for both developing and publishing the game to very lukewarm reviews. To many, the game felt unrefined and slow, even though load time and unskippable repetitive cutscenes were mainly the reason why the game felt so sluggish, sometimes feeling like the game wants to waste your time. To top it off, parts of the game needed you to grind a lot to be able to progress further through the story and may prove massive obstacles for those who aren't prepared. It did not help that Digimon World 2 had a big change in genre from its predecessor, the first one being a creature-raising sim, which must have been a great disappointment for those looking up to a similar experience that Digimon World 1 offered. I'd say it's a similar event that happened with The Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link on the NES, where the second game had a major genre and gameplay change from the first title, and its reception was less than ideal partly because of that fact. I, however, have a much more favorable opinion of Digimon World 2. I spent a lot of time with it as a child and took the opportunity to learn the game inside out. I braved the load times, adapted to its rules and mechanics, and unearthed a game so deep, an experience so awesome it became a core memory. It was, after all, the game that shaped my love for dungeon crawlers and interest into the fusion mechanic in monster collecting games, which eventually opened the way to the Monster Rancher and Shin Megami Tensei series. So you can be sure I explored what it had to offer in depth, and I'd like to share with you my perspective of a game that is very dear to me. So, welcome and get comfy as I lead you through this lengthy look at Digimon World 2. Be warned that I'll go through most of the story and game mechanics, so there will be heavy spoilers all around. You start the game as a fledgling tamer called Akira, on his last mission as a trainee before receiving his tamer license, proof of your mastery of Digimon taming. You are supervised by your friend and mentor Mr. Zudukorn, who lets you borrow his Digimon team and Digibeetle, a customizable tank in which you board to explore domains. In this tutorial, you'll get a first taste of what the mission entails as well as what navigating and battling feels like. The explanations are short and few, so it will be mostly up to you to discover how to tackle the various challenges domains throw at you. Here's a quick rundown of the basics. You can move the Digibeetle in 8 directions. Tap to look towards the chosen direction without moving. Moving in a room with wild Digimon makes them move afterwards. Come in contact with said Digimon and you'll initiate a battle. Wild Digimon only move in 4 directions, but can come in contact with you in diagonals, so be aware. Press X to interact with the tile in front of the Digibeetle. If the tile looks empty, you'll check if there's a trap hidden. You can also interact with diagonal tiles. HP is your Digibeetle's health. It decreases as you come in contact with traps or move on acid tiles without proper protection. EP is the Digibeetle's battery. One movement equals 1 EP, but diagonals also count as one move. Once you run out of either of them, your Digibeetle breaks down, forcing the emergency autopilot to activate, thankfully pulling you out of your sticky situation. It breaks down though, and the extra repair cost must be paid up front once you're back to the city. You'll come across tiles of different color in domains. Those are specialty floor. They raise the defense of a Digimon sharing this specialty and also raises the attack of move of the same element. Keep in mind that the enemy Digimon must be on the colored tile for it to activate in battle, not your Digibeetle. Your goal is to move from floor to floor to reach the last one, which houses the boss Digimon. Floor layout is semi-random. Most floors are blocks of rooms, corridors, enemies, and chests, randomly generated each time you enter a domain. But some floors will always have the same templates, chests, and enemy placement. The last floor will always have a special boss floor wall pattern, so you'll know when you're almost done. You must then travel to the boss room, avoiding the numerous obstacles along the way and beat it, completing the domain. In battle, you control up to 3 Digimon at a time, choosing their moves, then proceeding to the attack sequences, the order being dependent of the speed stat of each Digimon. They then take turns, one by one, doing their moves, taking damage, and so on. Once everyone has made their moves, the control returns to the player and the cycle repeats until you are victorious or game over. Being game over boots you back to the main menu, so don't forget to save often. HP is the Digimon's health, where MP is their energy. Each move has an MP cost, and if you run out of it, you can replenish some of your max MP by guarding. Run out of HP though, and that Digimon is down for the count and cannot act. There are 4 types of moves: attacks, counterattacks, interrupts, and assists. Attacks are your classic damaging moves. Some have additional effects, such as stat-reducing properties or status afflictions, but better effect means higher MP costs. Counterattacks are low-priority attacks, meaning they'll always act at the end of a turn sequence unless activated by taking damage. Once activated, a counter triggers various effects, such as attacking all the opposing team instead of just one enemy, or adding a certain status ailment, which can help turning a battle around. Interrupts are used right before an opponent's turn, and can add a temporary element like reducing the damage of the Digimon affected. Use them when prompted, because it will be scrapped at the end of the turn if you don't. Assists are support moves, ranging from buffs, debuffs, to healing and recovery. Some can even add a certain specialty to attacks, but those are not very reliable as they can deactivate the same turn they were applied. Missing an attack does not expand MP, it just wastes a turn. Redirecting attacks is also not a thing, so if you attack the same enemy with 2 Digimon, but the enemy is defeated after the first hit, the second attack will result in a miss. Status ailments are mostly negative conditions that can prove a thorn by your side if left unchecked. The most common ailments are paralysis, adds a 50-50 chance to miss your attack, random chance to be healed before attacking. Poison reduces defense of the afflicted Digimon and must be cured with a move or an item. Confusion makes the affected Digimon not listen to orders. Instead, it'll choose a random attack it knows and attack its own side. Random chance to be healed before attacking, but less common than paralysis. The less common and more situational ones are Charm. reducing motivation, meaning the affected Digimon will not be able to use its strongest moves. It works more against you than for you, as the AI will not be really affected by this condition. Invisibility makes the affected Digimon unable to be aimed by attacks, with the exception of party-hitting moves, random chance to lose the effect upon attacking. This can be the only good status effect, but there's a certain part in the early game where it can be used against you, making the condition a potential massive hindrance. Status ailments are automatically cured after a fight ends. Leveling up restores your HP and MP fully, making it a great mechanic that you can take advantage of if you plan a strategy around your Digimon's XP. However, you cannot stack level up, meaning one fight equals one level up, even if the fight gives enough XP for multiple levels. The concerned Digimon's required XP for the next level will be set at 0, meaning it will gain a level on the next fight. Given that they fully recover with each level, it makes grinding sessions simpler. You can line up one strong Digimon and two weak ones to easily bring them up to speed. There is also a level cap, unfortunately. Once it's reached, your Digimon cannot level up anymore. To circumvent this, you must DNA Digivolve, which we will cover in depth later in the video. You can also run away from battles, saving you the trouble and time of beating the wild Digimon, but still removing the encounter from the floor. Your initial success rate for fleeing depends on your overall speed versus the adversaries. However, the more you run, the less likely you are from succeeding multiple times in a row. If you don't succeed, the enemy gets a free turn against you, and that can turn a bad situation into a nightmarish one. In addition of your Digimon moves, you can also use your Digibeetle cannons to shoot items. Those items can have various effects, such as healing, recovery, buffing and debuffing, and damaging properties. To be able to use items, however, the right cannon must be installed to use the right items. For example, the shooter gun is used for healing and recovery items, so it must be installed and in working condition to be able to dispense those effects. That's it for the basics. Let's get back to the story. The tutorial boss is a fairly easy fight. Your team is more than up to the task for defeating the enemy. Still, do be careful, as Leomon's signature move is a counterattack that adds the damage received and sends it back in addition of the move's initial damage, making it a dangerous attack in the right conditions. Aside from that, take the time to get used to the very slow battle flow and enjoy the slapping boss music. Upon finishing the mission, you'll be rewarded with your own license and Digibeetle. You'll also have to choose your guard team, which will also decide your starting Digimon, the type of Digimon you can recruit, and the items you can buy in the early game. There are 3 teams: the Blue Falcons, the Gold Hawks, and the Black Sword. In the canon, Akira chooses the Blue Falcons, but choosing another team will not influence the story other than the points mentioned, aside from very small changes. To choose a team, enter the leader's room, talk with them, get out, then re-enter. A cutscene will trigger and you will be asked if that team is the one you want to join. I chose Gold Hawks as vaccines are my preferred type and Agumon is a great partner in the beginning. Thing is, when you choose your guard team, you won't be able to visit the other teams and the security personnel will refuse you entry, so no turning back once the choice is made. You then get your first mission as a team member, which is venture the SCSI domain and defeat the boss Digimon. Simple enough. Upon exiting the leader's room, you will be greeted by 2 recruits named Bertrand and Joy. which will serve as your friendly rivals through the story. Bertrand is the proud, overbearing rival that overestimates his abilities, whereas Joy is the more friendly and polite one, but is really a sore loser. There we go! We're on our own. We can freely control the character and explore the city and get acquainted with the various menus. We got a bit of money in the tutorial, so visiting the shops at each side of the room is a good idea to get geared up, but we will save 500 bits for later as there are more shops to visit. The left merchant has your typical healing items, whereas the right merchant provides more technical items unique to the chosen team. I buy some presents first, as those are important if you want more Digimon on your team, and trust me, you want to get a full party ASAP, as it will make things much easier on you early on. Side note, when you buy items, they are transferred to your server, which acts as an item storage. To be able to use them in a level, we need to transfer them from the server to our Digibeetle toolbox. Once done, we can leave the building and visit the main gate, where the next vendors can be found. The Digibeetle parts shop, ammo shop, as well as the Digibeetle mechanic. There, you can buy parts for your tank and install them, providing the various stats and abilities your Digibeetle will have when exploring the domains. For now, we will only talk to the mechanic and upgrade the battery one level. This will double our starting EP, making our first foray much more lenient. The first battery only has 100 EP, which means 100 movements, and that is not a lot in a dungeon crawler. We'll get back to the Digibeetle shop later once we get more money to spare, as the rest isn't too important for the first mission. From there on out, we're ready to go on the mission. But before we officially start, here's a quick recap of the facilities in the city. The Digimon Center. You can make trades with the NPC there if you meet the condition for the trade, which is have the right Digimon in your party. Those trades change when reaching various stages of the story, so be sure to make the trade before you lose the opportunity. The offered Digimon has an additional move and a slightly higher level cap than Wild Digimon, making them worthwhile to get. The Tamer Club. A social club for tamers that has no actual use, but some events will happen here. The Colosseum. A place where tamers compete against one another. You will have to enter tournaments and climb the tamer ranks, as they are considered a testament of one's strength. To keep progressing in the story, you will have to reach a certain rank at certain parts of the game. Rookies must first prove they're strong enough by earning the right to enter tournaments, so for now, we can do anything here. The main gate. The actual center of operations, the main gate serves as your deploying point to go and explore domains. There are always some people to talk to in the main lobby, and they can give you some pointers or hints depending on your story progress. On the left side lies the previously mentioned Digibeetle workshop, where you can tweak and upgrade your mobile tank. The rest is the 3 teams HQ. Excluding the main room with the shops, there are 3 rooms in each HQ. The leftmost room is the lab where you can DNA Digivolve your partners. The middle room is your leader's room, and the last room is vacant most of the time, but a tamer might be there once in a while. And that concludes our city tour. So, we go back to the main gate, we talk to Mission Chief Carol, which will deploy our Digibeetle for the mission. Pro tip, get used to it. SCSI domain is perfect to get started. It has only 4 small floors with simple layout and big rooms. Each floor has a different type of Digimon associated to it, so anyone can get a partner very early on. While on the subject, here's how to gain more Digimon. In a room with said wild Digimon, press square to look at it, showing its level, team composition, and type. On this screen, press X to open the gift menu and choose the one to shoot. The wild Digimon will then pick up the gift and an invisible value will go up. This value is represented by a heart over the wild Digimon and will grow depending on the gift level and Digimon's overall level. Each gift costs a turn, so Digimon will act after every present shot. Once it's big enough or the target has reached you, start the battle and then defeat the Digimon you want last, then hope for the best. If it was impressed with your performance, they'll get back up and ask to join your team. Make sure you have at least one space available in your Digibeetle or you won't get it. There are however two major drawbacks when trying to befriend wild Digimon. First, presents are kinda expensive and easily wasted, so be careful and plan accordingly when using them. Second, wild Digimon are a tough crowd to please. Even at the highest value, they might not join you anyway. All is based on probability and no guarantee. Once you get a new Digimon, don't forget to put it on your Digiline to make it join the fight. Now, back to exploring. I befriend a Tapirmon, which I called Beans for reasons. Take your time and don't rush through the floor. Explore fully. The domain is small, so take this opportunity to level up. Get a partner and open the many chests lying around, as they contain many useful items. Be aware that some chests are booby-trapped and must be disarmed to open safely. If you fail the disarming, the bomb will be triggered and could damage you in many ways depending on the trap level. More on traps later, as they aren't a threat in the early levels. Also, don't be afraid to go back to the city if you feel like you're in a pinch. The autopilot teleports you back from anywhere and acts as a full heal for both your Digibeetle and Digimon. The only thing you need to do is to arm yourself with patience, as the returning to the city cutscene is unskippable and plays each time you come back from a domain. So, with a new partner and a box full of items, it's time to face the last floor of the domain. It's hardly a floor, more like a direct path to the room hiding the boss, Hagurumon. Before entering a boss fight, it's always a good thing to check up on your status and check if anyone in your team needs healing. Better safe than sorry. Upon entering the room, you meet with the boss, who talks smack, but you answer in full and the battle initiates. It's a fairly straightforward fight. Hagurumon has low power but high defenses. Add to that its machine specialty taking advantage of the floor color, and it creates a bulky opponent that struggles to hit back. As long as you got enough healing items to endure the boss attacks, the guy will fall sooner or later. Once the boss is defeated, exit the domain, tell Carol you're back, and go back to your team leader to report your successful mission. Turns out, there's another mission already waiting for you. Beat more boss Digimon. This time, the targets are located in video and disk domain, so both domains will have to be cleared before having to report back. Bertrand and Joy are also waiting for you in the lobby. Bertrand wanting to congratulate you on your victory. After a bit of lag issues, Joy reassures you that he means no malice, that he sees us as a rival, then leaves as well. Take the time to restock, and when you're done, stop by the Digimon Center for a little secret. In the left part of the room, there's a guy called Chris Connor that gives you a free toy plane, the best gift in the game. It's the highest gift level and can be used on any Digimon type, so it's a great item to have early on. He stays there until you complete the next mission, then disappears, so this item is limited time only. There's also the first trade going on, where you can exchange a toy Agumon for a snow Agumon. Toyagumon is vaccine type, so getting it will be quite simple for me. Once stocked up and ready to go, we go to the next domain, Disc Domain. This one focuses mainly on virus-type Digimon. First floor is filled with low-level Digimon, but second floor and up, you'll start to see groups of wild Digimon. That means more experience and more money per fight, so it's a good opportunity to grind, as leveling up is still easy at this stage of the game. You'll also come across a new kind of trap, the acid tiles, which damages you when stepped on. It's easy to avoid for the moment though, so they pose little threat. What starts being a threat is the Digibeetle's battery. As the domain gets more complex, the lack of EP and the constant need for regeneration may become a problem. Aside from those hurdles, the exploration is still pretty straightforward. The boss resides on the 5th floor, and this floor has a choice, up or down. There's a fight and some useful items along the way. We reach the boss room, this time being a Numemon, enjoying himself in his damp, dark, gloomy place. Seems like we've interrupted his good time and he's having none of it, leading to the boss fight. The boss seems intimidating at first glance. 2 champion opponents already? Don't worry too much though, it's not that difficult. Sukamon and Nanimon may hit hard, but even with the floor advantage, their HP pool is so low they can't take much heat. Demidevimon does not hit that hard, but its movability makes you lose some MP as well, making it rather annoying. Focusing on one at a time is the key to win this fight, and guard or heal when necessary. After the boss, we notice that there are 2 paths in the boss room. One way leads to the exit, the other to Endgame. You must talk with Endgame to complete the domain, and it will unlock a new place to visit called Meditation Dome. For now, we'll go back to the city, tell Carol we're back, and prepare for the next domain. Before getting to the next stage, we got some money to spare, so it's a good time to start putting some more parts on the Digibeetle. Since we can get a lot of recovery items from domains, it's a good habit to keep your bits for Digibeetle parts, as they become quite expensive as the better parts get on sale. Traps are also going to be more of a hindrance after completing the 2 domains for this mission, so it's a good time to explain those 2 subjects in detail. Arguably the most important place to shop in the game, Digibeetle parts and upgrades become very important as the game progresses. Each part has its own usage and can be either upgraded when installed or changeable when the upgraded version becomes available. Upgradable parts can be augmented up to level 5, and used parts can be resold to the vendors for a small refund. Here's a quick explanation of every part. The Digibeetle body. The actual level of your Digibeetle, they come in 3 types: steel, titanium, adamantium. The bodies will influence your look, the parts you can equip, and the number of cannons you can install on your Digibeetle. The radar, the map radar, and the autopilot are base parts. Radar is your vision, map radar is self-explanatory, and the autopilot is your get-out-of-jail-free card. Engine and battery are for HP and EP respectively. Each part can be upgraded to level 5. The RAM is the memory for the number of Digimon that can accompany you in domains. Don't forget to keep a free slot if you're trying to get new Digimon, as they cannot be transferred to the server from domains. The box is your toolbox. The bigger it is, the more items you can store in your tank. Each new model adds 8 new inventory spaces. The hand is used to disarm traps on treasure chests. The chance of success depends on the level of the hand versus the level of the trap. You can check the rate of success by reading the message when trying to open the chest. Failing the disarm will activate the trap and hurt your Digibeetle. The tires are used to cross safely on acid tiles of the same level or weaker than your protection. The arm is used to disarm landmines. This one must be at the same level as the mine or higher to be able to disarm. The sweepers are available in two kinds. One is to detect hidden trap, the other is to detect bug nest. Minesweep is upgradable to level 5, while Bug Sweep is only upgradable up to level 3. They're pretty useful when upgraded. I'd argue these are the most useful parts, as they help a lot for navigation and you're less bound to use autopilot often. The cannons. There are 5 cannons in all. The shooter gun, R and Z cannon, missile gun, and bug zapper. The shooter, R and Z cannons are for items in battle. Shooter gun is for healing recovery, R cannon is for buffs and debuffs, and the Z cannon is for offensive items. Missile gun and bug zapper are used while exploring and enables you to fire ammo and bug zaps to destroy the threats. As a general rule of thumb, it's usually not a good idea to fully upgrade a part since it will be eventually changed for a better one, and while bits aren't too tough to grind, it's pretty long and boring in the early game since battles aren't giving you too much as of yet. For the traps. Many traps are lying in wait to squander your progress, and some of them are actually very efficient at their job. It's best to avoid them if possible, but the game will sometimes place traps in the way of the player, preventing them of progressing until they get rid of them, so it's a prudent approach to be prepared to deal with traps. They come in 5 levels, each one with their own color: yellow, green, blue, purple, and red. Here is what to expect. Landmines are pretty common. They explode when stepped on, can also be hidden. They have the potential to break a run with various negative effects, from temporarily impairing your Digibeetle's control to breaking your Digibeetle parts, rendering them unable to be used until fixed. They can be disabled by the Digibeetle's arm part. The electrospores are big electric fields that prevent passage even in diagonals. If touched, they do 400 HP damage per trap level. They can be invisible, but are detected by the Minesweeper. Must use a magnet missile to clear the hazard. The big rocks are pretty much roadblocks, but there's usually another way to bypass them. They are mostly harmless, just inconvenient. They can be destroyed by a drill missile. The acid tiles are harmful tiles that deals 50 HP damage per trap level for each tile you step on. Can be negated by having the proper tires installed. And finally, the last and the worst, the bug nests. They come in only 3 levels, yellow, blue, and red, but have many different species. Some will drain EP or bits, other will take space in your memory. But the worst offender is the bug that returns random Digimon in your Digibeetle back to the city server, killing the progress of your run, forcing you to go back to the city, put the Digimon back in your Digibeetle and Digiline, then go back to the start of the domain again. To add a layer of frustration, each nest needs a specific ammo to get rid of it, so it becomes a burden, costs a lot, and clutters your toolbox. Best only to buy the highest ammo against return bugs and max out the bug sweeper to be at least protected against instant must go back to the city situation. With that now covered, we're now ready to go to video domain. Right off the bat, I get my third party member, a Biomon which I call Donkey, because I heard he was the protagonist of a very great game.
Please!
The challenge of this domain is on par with the previous one, but wild Digimon are all vaccine, so that means we'll find another friend. But this one isn't to add to the party, it will be for trade. It's your boy Toyagmon. Since I've got my 3 named party members, I will only change the first letter of the Digimon's name, and we will get to Y soon. For now, it's back to the city, straight to the Digi Center, where we'll trade our boy for a Snow Agumon. Unfortunately, Digimon obtained in trades cannot be renamed, so we'll keep the name as is. I also do a stop at the Digibeetle shop to get and install a better hand part for easier chest disarming. And back to the domain it is. This time it's all the way to the boss, only stopping once to pick up a Tentomon. Well, that was the plan, but I miscalculated, so I'll get another Tapirmon, I guess. Just like web domain, this one is 5 floors deep, so with our gear, it's smooth sailing until we reach the boss. Compared to the Numemon boss fight, this guy is a pushover. The only thing to watch out aside from moderate damage is the paralysis attached to its attack. If you have a full team and healing item in your inventory, this boss is a cakewalk. After winning the fight, we pick up its shiny treasure called Dynamo Part and clear the domain, completing our mission. We go back to Vendar to report, and he replies that he is impressed with our fast progress. He does not have more missions for the moment, so he directs us to the Tamers Club to socialize. Yep, that's the gist of it. Upon entering the club, a cutscene starts, and we go talk to a guy called Mark Schultz, who has found a hidden domain with some boss Digimon. When Akira asks him why he does not do it himself, Mark explains that he messed up his DNA digivolving and needs to focus on raising his Digimon for a while. It's a totally valid answer, as it is something that can happen to you if you're not careful with DNA digivolving. I'm just about to get into digivolving, so bear with me a bit longer. We get the coordinates for BIOS domain and a neat toy plane. Sweet! We'll enter for but a moment, because both Badger and Beans are almost at level 11, which is the level at which rookies can digivolve into champion. So we will grind until both are ready and head back to the lab for digivolutions. By the way, we can see on the second floor a Metal Greymon wandering about. This isn't the boss, but it's actually a wild Digimon we can recruit. We have been given a cool toy plane to boot, so it would be an ideal opportunity to use it. Now, with our Digimon ready, we go back to the lab for the first Digivolutions of the game. Digivolving is simple. Rookie goes to Champion at level 11, Champion goes to Ultimate at 21, and Ultimate goes to Mega at 31. You learn a new move the next level up after Digivolving. It's pretty simple. Now for the most important part of the game, DNA Digivolution. This is what can make or break your game. You take 2 of your existing Digimon and fuse them together, creating a new, more powerful Digimon. Basically, you need a main Digimon and a fodder Digimon, which is why I chose only 3 names, because those 3 will be my main team. To get the best result, your main Digimon must be max level. The fodder should also be at max, but it's a bit more optional. The type also influences the offspring. If both Digimon's types are different, the one that have the advantage over the other will take over. It should be noted that the lab at your team can only DNA digivolve a combination of Digimon that result in that team's type, limiting your options for the first part of the game. Once you've chosen the Digimon to digivolve, the offspring will be born with +1 digivolve points, and you'll be also able to rename it. Digivolve points, or DP for short, will influence the base stats of your Digimon. The more a Digimon has DP, the better its stats will be, and may even change its Digivolution route. Its level cap will also be higher following this equation. Main level plus fodder level divided by 5. Meaning that if your main is level 16 and your fodder is level 15, the offspring new cap would be level 19. It also rounds up at the lower digit, so if your fodder is level 14, the cap would only go up 2 levels instead of 3. This is why I said that the father's maxed level is optional, because if its cap is level 18, you could instead bring it to level 15 and get the same cap that if you'd max the father's level, making progress potentially faster in the long run. So, Badger becomes a Greymon as expected, and Beans become a Unimon, huh? Not the best, but it'll do. With those transformations in tow and a toy plane in the toolbox, it's time to tackle BIOS domain. In this level, traps will become more of a hindrance, signifying to the player that they should start upgrading their Digibeetle, which we actually did to an extent, so we'll be up to the challenge. Wild Digimon are also all data on this level. Note that the second floor where we encounter Metal Greymon will always be the same, since it's an event floor, similar to boss floors, so you can memorize the path. The domain is just 6 floors deep, but gets more complex. Mines and Spore are actually in your way. Rooms get smaller, giving you less space to maneuver around Wild Digimon. We fortunately get our champion moves quickly enough. Nova Blast for Greymon, a powerful fire move, and Air Attack, a somewhat low-powered technique. It's a good thing we got those moves too, because on the last floor, there is a way that leads to a room with the male Greymon we saw earlier. There's plenty of space to shoot gifts, but one toy plane is enough to max the chance to get it. Once set up, it's time to fight. Metal Greymon is pretty intimidating at first glance. It's an ultimate level Digimon at level 21 when you're barely getting at the champion stage. It also got 2 moves, one of them being an interrupt that lowers your attack. What's more, it can hit like a truck. Be sure to bring healing items just in case. After an arduous fight, Metal Greymon goes down, then back up to join our team. I switch up the finding line to include our new addition and get to the boss room, this time being a high and mighty Centaurimon ready to battle. It can be a tough fight if you go in blind, which we luckily aren't. Centaurimon hits kinda hard, while Gabumon just tries. It's a bit stronger than the one you face in wild battles, but nothing to write home about. Starmon has a trick down its sleeves, though. It has a counterattack that hits all of your party when triggered, which could throw you off balance if not careful. Once the trio is defeated, we barely get to the exit panel. We then give the chief our presents and report our success back to our team leader, which congratulates us on completing a mission he wasn't aware we were on, and gives us an entry pass, which allows us to participate in Colosseum tournaments. They're part of the story, and you'll eventually need to reach a certain level in order to keep progressing in the game. You can either try it out or wait until it becomes necessary. After exiting the leader's room, the chief engineer arrives at the HQ very worried and goes to meet with Vandar right away, and we decide to follow. We learn that the power generator is malfunctioning and item shops must be run at minimal capacity to save power. It seems that some parts of the generator have also been stolen, so we volunteer to find clues that could potentially point to the culprit. So we start by the Tamer Club to gather information, and we found our person of interest. She doesn't tell you outright, but you enter fast enough to hear her talk to herself, revealing in her monologue her name, her sister's name, where she comes from, and that she's actually the thief we're looking for. We let her get out when she asks us to, though, for some reason. Before giving chase, we stop by the Digibeetle shop to buy some upgrade parts. Yep, there's some new and better parts to buy for the Digibeetle, including a more powerful battery for very cheap. It bumps you up to 1000 EP, so it's a big leap from the one we have currently installed. Furthermore, I also get the most expensive item in the list, the Wasp ROM, which lets the Digibeetle host 5 Digimon. After installing the new parts and selling the old ones, it's time to go visit Meditation Dome to inquire further about the thief. We ask Angemon about Device Dome, and he tells us that its location is hidden because it's a haven for people that escaped the war against the Blood Knights, an evil organization that waged war for domination. So people created Device Dome to hide from the assailants. It's not until Akira mentions Kim that Angemon replies that he knows her. In fact, we've just missed her. It seems like she's now searching for stuff at some domains, so we need to give chase. Drive and web domains are now our targets. While scouting ahead, I made friends with a Gizemon that I call Gizemon. While Digimon also gets a bit more challenging, introducing champion level Digimon at higher levels. It's a good thing because experience and money are easier to gain, so more opportunities to buy better items or upgrades. Badger gets at max level and Dante is ready to digivolve, so we go back to the city, let the chief park our Digibeetle, and to the lab we go. Dante digivolves into Airdramon, a slight disappointment because Birdramon looks pretty cool in this game and its attack is better than Airdramon's. Oh well, no matter, it's only a temporary form. Now that my main Digimon are capping their level, it's time to put them aside for a moment and start training the fodder Digimon. Since we have Metal Greymon, we can accelerate the process by putting 2 weaker Digimon on the team while grinding the tougher domains. Also, it's a good thing to item hunt on grinding sessions, as it will diminish the need to buy items, saving your bits for more expensive purchases. Toy presents are also great, as it works for all Digimon, no matter their type, widening your range of obtainable Digimon. Web Domain has a more complex layout. Deeper, different rooms, more traps, and stronger Digimon are to be expected. Fortunately, we're more than prepared, and RNG worked in my favor as I get to floor 5 in a matter of minutes, which is very fast considering the pace of the game. There are also great Digimon choices if you can get Virus Digimon. Kunemon and Dokunemon are very nice additions to the roster, as their Digivolution lines get pretty useful moves. Hagurumon also starts to appear as a wild Digimon, in team with Demidevimon. Both can be okay additions in the early game, but it moves 2 spaces in domains, which can make it tricky to befriend. On later floors, Woodmon will appear in rooms with nature specialty, boosting its power. They only move once every 2 of our moves, and won't leave the specialty tiles if they're on them, so they can be worked around easily enough should we be in a tight spot. The boss floor is also more challenging this time around, having more paths to explore and rooms filled with enemies and strong acid tiles to push through to get to the final room where the boss waits for us. This fight does not pull its punches. It focuses on reducing your stats. Kuwagemon's move lowers your defense, while Jesumon's reduces your speed. Octomon does not have any special properties, but is pretty fast, so mixed with the other enemy's abilities, it can become a threat as the fight goes on. It's important to focus on Kuwagemon first, because its ability is the most threatening one and does not benefit from the water floor tile compared to its allies. Once it is down, the rest will follow soon enough. After the successful trip, I quickly embark in another trek to get a Crabmon, the target of the next trade at the Digicenter. It's a very easy trade that yields a Wizardmon with Necromagic, a move that drains MP of fallen Digimon, which is one of the most useful abilities in the game. I also get some experience to Digivolve further Digimon, and in turn make my first DNA Digivolution with Frigimon and Greymon, resulting as a new Snow Agumon. Not very original, but the usefulness will make up for the lack of variety. Now for Drive Domain. This domain is where the game will put its first major roadblock, a challenge that will require you to prove that you understand its basic functions in order to progress. By that, I mean that the next domain has a recurring floor that always has the same trap blocking your way. You need to have the missile gun and some proper ammo in your inventory to shoot it out of the way. Fortunately, the game has some semblance of clemency, as there will always be some ammo in chests on that floor, giving you a bit of breathing room. Just keep in mind that you always have to pass that floor each time you pull back, so inventory management starts to become important, because you need to make sure you have the necessary items for each obstacle. And since each obstacle have their own items and different Digibeetle parts to be taken care of, item management may rapidly become overwhelming. The toolbox is also quite limited at the beginning, therefore, you need to make choices of what items and how many to bring, and if you keep some free space for domain chests. Since item management is so important in the game, the Drive Domain roadblock is actually a boon, as it gives you the time to acclimate to this mechanic and the opportunity to get your stuff together before moving on. The game will only get harder after this mission after all. It's also a good time to stop story progress and try out DNA Digivolutions. There are good places to grind for rookie Digimon, and grinding means you'll get money, and more money means access to better Digibeetle parts and items, which in turn means an easier time in general. For this domain's boss floor, it's not as treacherous as the previous one, but is very taxing on your battery. It's a maze with long, winding corridors made to drain your remaining EP, as a final test to see if you're up to the game's challenge. At this point, it's fair to say that the boss is pretty underwhelming considering the expectations of the domain. Three fire specialty Digimon on a fire floor using fire moves. Pretty much sums it up. Despite all the boosts they benefit from, they actually have low HP, so sniping is quite effective. One at a time, preferably the bird first, but it's not too important. Unfortunately, clearing both domains does not yield results about finding Kim the parts thief. This is until you go back to tell Endgamon, which in turn has an update. Ogremon, a meditating Digimon, told Kim about Modem Domain, so it seems our chase is not quite over yet. We're ready to go, so it's a straight line to the domain from here. Modem Domain isn't as demanding as Drive Domain, but it's still a wild ride nonetheless. It has some strong data Digimon, especially Dremojimon, because it hits pretty hard, especially considering our team is weaker against datas. On the 7th floor, we finally cross path with Kim, so we've got visual on our target. Next floor is last floor, and there's a little surprise waiting at the end after an army of Dremojimon blocking our way. It is designed to wear you out, so it's important to heal before the boss. But the domain has its own boss, and it's not Kim. It's Greymon. Surprisingly, the fight is not really that hard. Saber Dramon has such laughable HP pool that I managed to take it out on the first turn. Toy Flame has solo base power that it makes it almost unfit to make it in a boss fight at this point. It's a good thing that this boss is easy, because here's the surprise. A second boss fight. That's right. Kim is now bothered that we're following her around and challenges us to a fight. Yes, multiple boss fights are a thing in this game. Fortunately, these two bosses are not really hard to deal with. It's more about the message rather than the difficulty at this point. Kim's all-champion team looks strong, but is nothing special really. Just don't hit Wizardmon until it's the last one standing, and it's an easy victory to take home. Kim's attitude changes on the spot the moment she realizes we mean business, and tells us to meet her at Device Dome, where she'll give us the stolen parts back. To me, unlocking Device Dome means we're officially out of the early game, because this place becomes your second hub. It offers everything the shops has to offer, but better. You can finally get presents for all types of Digimon, better parts and ammo at Digibeetle shops, and a lab where you can DNA Digivolve any Digimon together. This place offers you everything you need to get in one package, and it's really great. In addition, this location is on the world map, so you don't need to talk to the chief every time you forget or need to tweak something when on the world map. As promised, we meet up with Kim, and she apologizes for stealing the parts. It was, however, for a good outcome, as her sister Tekadona is a gifted scientist and needed a part to engineer a new type of radar. In return for borrowing the parts without warning, she gives us a titanium core, an item that gives us access to a new Digibeetle body. We must have the right engine installed first though, and this one is expensive. It's worthwhile to save money for it, however, as the new engine gives you a nice HP boost, and the body upgrade physically changes your Digibeetle, also giving it enough space for a fourth cannon to equip. We go back to base to confirm that the parts have been correctly delivered back, and then Vandar gives us a reward of 2000 bits for our hard work. It's almost insulting, but it's more money. He then tells us to come back when our tamer rank will be high enough, thing that we can do by participating in Colosseum tournaments, which we'll do right away. So to participate in tournaments, you must pay a fee for each rank you enter in. A tournament consists of 3 fights, one after the other, no items allowed. Your team does not recover in between, so it's pretty much an endurance test as well. First fight is against Bertrand, with its lineup of rookies. It gets cleaned up fast, nothing to comment on really. He gets salty about it. Nothing unexpected. Joy Joy is next, with her own rookie team. Nothing to see here either. She also gets pretty salty about it. Esmeralda, a Gold Hawk tamer, is the last fight with her Hall Vaccine rookie team. Another easy one, so we quickly deal with it. She takes her defeat with grace and leaves. Leomon then rewards us with a level 2 license and a HP driver 2, which is a nice item to receive for such an easy ordeal. Next is the tournament for the level 3 license, our target to keep the story going. Starting the lineup for the second tournament is Doug Dewham, the dweebest of all the characters in my opinion. He thinks he's a tough nut to crack, but his team tells otherwise. After mopping the floor with him, he leaves dumbfounded, and even Leomon acknowledges he's a pushover. Second fight is against Sheena, the first fight to actually have a bite behind its bark. Sheena still has rookies, but each one has an additional threat to watch out for. Otamamon confuses, Gazimon paralyzes, and Digimon lowers your MP with each hit. It still is not difficult though. Sheena takes her defeat pretty hard, but we'll see her again soon enough. And there he is, back again as cocky as ever. This time with more preparation. He has a Raremon, a champion virus type with a counterattack that confuses you on retaliation. As long as it gets taken down last, the fight does not take long before it's over. Our friend gets a second slap in the face and leaves with his loss as we get rewarded with a level 3 license and a sweet toy boat for our future friendship endeavors. We go and report our progress to the base, but get interrupted by an emergency. It seems the Blood Knights have been spotted again. They are an army that attacked the city 30 years ago, as said by Endgame at Meditation Dome, and are the reason guard teams are now a thing. They operate under their leader Crimson, which escaped capture in the war initially and is now back for revenge. The Blood Knights are now hiding in some domain we have cleared up and are now reopened with new challenges to overcome. Code Red is now launched and all the city is on high alert. As we leave the leader's room, we are greeted by familiar faces. Bertrand and Joy also joins the fight against the Blood Knights and introduces us to a new character, Lucky Lewis, who is the lastest recruit to join your guard team. He's a polite and well-mannered guy, but I swear the recruits are chosen younger and younger. The two guys then exit, leaving Joy behind as she still has buffering issues. At this point, a new trade is now available at the Digi Center, a Numemon for a Megadramon. Another good trade, and the first ultimate Digimon you can get from those trades. The good thing is that Numemon are very common in the new variation of domains, so we'll get to it right now, as we'll also get some good experience because the wild Digimon teams are getting more and more challenging. It's pretty much apparent the moment you enter the new domains. Champion level Digimon starts to appear as soon as the second floor now, and they mean business. The Numemon we're searching for has two team variants, one with a Raremon and Tsukaimon, and the other one with Devidramon and Mushroomon. Tsukaimon has a move that hits its allies, triggering their counter. Funny thing is that Devidramon also has that move and can sometimes use it on Mushroomon, and it hits for a pretty good amount of damage. We now return to the center to get a cool Megadramon and later make Donti our first data rookie. Next, we go back for some training and also try our traded Digimon that also has Garudamon's move called Wingblade, a simple damaging interrupt. I also drop by a CSI domain to get a Gomamon to add to my team. Then, after coming back to the city, I get the Digibeetle geared up, and it's time to get to the next domain. As mentioned earlier, wild Digimon are getting tougher. Bigger floor layouts are starting to appear and specialty floor is more and more common, making fights potentially even harder. It's better to start the domain with a lineup of fodder in training. It's a good thing to keep your stronger Digimon in reserve so they're in fighting condition when needed. On my way to the boss, I actually get a Devidramon because this particular Digimon looks really cool. Not only that, but their move, Crimson Claw, gets stronger the more status ailments the target has. It can get ridiculously strong in the right conditions. The only thing preventing the move from being OP is its MP cost. 18 MP for a champion move is a lot and can drain an MP bar quickly enough if used without care. Another Digimon with strong recruiting potential on later floors is Gekomon. Their attack can confuse, and confusion is really useful all around. The boss floor hosts lots of Kuwagamon themes that can spell trouble if you get stuck in lots of battles. Not only that, but Bertrand is also on this floor giving chase to a Blood Knight Digibeetle. He intercepts us and forces us to fight him over who will meet up with the boss. This fight is a bit harder than the last fight at the Colosseum. His team only has damage dealer this time around. Just make him remember who's boss and he'll come around in no time. Also, pro tip. If you feel like you can't go farther because a mini-boss gave you lots of trouble, you could always autopilot back to the city, restock and restart. The mini-boss will stay defeated. I decide to push to the actual boss room. There, we meet with Commander Damien, a character that will be a recurring antagonist throughout the events of the game. The cool boss team from the tutorial is back for this fight, and boy is it welcome. Damien's team looks strong, and it is. They all throw poop, but are pretty decent at it. He manages to push back a bit, but I eventually finish victorious. After this domain, it is evident that unpreparedness is one of your worst enemies in the game. Always be careful and never push too far when in doubt. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there are junk parts piling up in your inventory since the Blood Knight have appeared. Is it related or just a coincidence? No matter what it is, it's definitely annoying. I also fuse beans with Metal Greymon for a massive boost in growth, waiting for Metal Greymon to get max level to use it as a main fusion material is also viable, but by level 25, it gets fairly weak in long domains, so its training gets kinda tiresome from this level onwards. I also get enough funds to buy a Pegasus engine, the one required to upgrade the Digibeetle body to Titanium. To get this upgrade, we need to get to the main gate's Digibeetle shop and talk with Chief Engineer Maestro, who will do it free of charge after you change your engine. Now, our Digibeetle is green and slightly different. With our Digimon ready to get experience and our Digibeetle looking good, it's now time for an off-camera grinding session to be ready to tackle efficiently the next domains. We're now back, and it's time for Digivolutions. Beans become Leomon again. Badger turns back to Frigimon, and Donti gets to be a Kiwimon. With our main tree back to champion stage, things will be more manageable as their DNA evolutions makes them stronger as well as keeping all their parents' previous moves. Now, because of a silly mistake, I accidentally lost one of my recordings, so I won't have footage for a bit. It sucks because the part I lost had some important story parts, but I still have my notes, so we're not totally in the dark here. Bear with me for a moment and enjoy the random moments from my grinding sessions. The next domain we will revisit is SCSI domain. This one is pretty much a copy-paste from web domain in terms of complexity, but is just 6 floors. I managed to recruit a Clearagumon on the 3rd floor because that Digimon specializes in healing assists, which become important to have later on. Traveling to the boss floor is pretty fast. I get lucky spawning close to the floor tiles and get up to the boss floor quickly. It's littered with Numemon, just like the Kuwagamon and Dremogimon we saw earlier, trying to weaken you before the boss fight. It's a better option to run to keep your health high, but they give fair experience, so they can be fought for some late level ups before the boss. This boss fight includes a Dark Rizamon, a Bakemon, and a Deltamon on a Darkness floor. It's imperative to take Bakemon first, as Evil Charm has a confusion effect added which could spell trouble. Deltamon's attack hits all your party. It's low damage, but could be boosted by Dark Rizamon's Darkness Ray, an assist that gives Darkness specialty to its allies. It's not effective on Bakemon since it already got that specialty naturally. Once the boss is done, we make a quick stop at Device Dome to install a R-Cannon on my Digibeetle. I don't really use it, so it's more for the novelty than anything else, and I had the bits to spare. And it's right onto Video Domain, the last place to revisit for our mission. This domain has the same floor that we've encountered in Drive Domain earlier, but this time with level 2 Electrospores. It's a bit of a check from the game to see if you keep your inventory up to date. It may be annoying, but honestly, inventory management is very important, so I see those obstacles as beneficial. This domain has 7 floors, and Big Vagsane team composition being the first to host a team of 3 champion wild Digimon, Birdramon, Ikakumon, and Garurumon. Not Garurumon, it's not a typo. I recruited a Gomamon earlier because I wanted it to evolve into a Kakumon, but I forgot that it needs lots of DP before it can transform into its canon form. The right choice would have been Penguinmon, which directly digivolves to a Kakumon at 0 DP. This big walrus was actually my target, I wanted one. Well, this team composition is another opportunity to get one. However, that's a challenging recruitment because Birdramon moves 2 tiles each time you move once, so it reaches you fast. Furthermore, gifts are less effective since these wild Digimon are higher level. However, the game is kinda self-aware because some floor layouts have the group stuck between big rocks and walls, making it impossible for them to reach you, letting you pelt them with gifts before reaching them yourself. And it's always a pleasant find when it happens. Now, with all that said, I get a walrus spawn and get to the boss floor afterwards. Unfortunately, there's plenty of Numemon waiting for us once again. After running from all the battles, I finally get to the boss of this domain, another Blood Knight officer. This Blood Knight has a team composed of a Raremon, a Defimon, and a Soulmon, which is actually Bakemon with a hat. Both Raremon and Bakemon have counterattacks, so Defimon is the obvious Digimon to go for first. Soulmon is next, since its counter paralyzes, so it's less of a problem than Raremon that confuses, so keep this one for last, and this boss is a doozy. With all our objectives complete, we go back to our leader to report our success. After some congratulations, Vandar tells us about the archive ship, an ancient vessel used to escape File Island during the war long ago. He says that the Blood Knights must be trying to find it, so he puts us in charge to find it before them. Exiting the leader's room, we find us ambushed by the Bert Joy Lewis combo once again. Bertrand being insufferable as always, telling the protagonist how he and Lewis are going to find the archive ship before him, and Joy lagging behind as always. So at this point, we must search for clues about this archive ship. Short answer is Professor Pyote at Device Dome. He's the guy that's usually at the Dome's lab, but for some reason, he will have changed places and can be found at the Digibeetle garage instead. He says that he knows something about the archive ship, but won't tell us until we prove ourselves to him by showing him 3 Digimon: Yanmamon, Ikakumon, and Siakomon. In normal circumstances, that mission serves as another progress wall, but this time not for item management, but Digimon recruitment. If we ever had to actually hunt the Digimon, a new person appears in the Device Dome that is called Gus Get'em, and he can actually tell you the location of each monster for a price. I knew about this, so I had the Digimon in the server already. I put them in my Digibeetle and voila! Mission complete. Payot then tells us that we must find a man called Ben Oldman. Great! More people finding. We go back to report the clues we found back at base, and we learn that Ben Oldman is actually the previous Blue Falcon leader. We also mentioned to Vandar that our toolbox is getting cluttered with junk parts. This is actually caused by our Digimon due to a contamination that changes their behavior. It would seem that this is also contagious, so the leader forbids us to come back until we find a cure for the problem. While that sucks, we still have access to all the facilities and items at Device Dome, so it's not all that bad. At the dome, we go back to Professor Payot that explains that the affliction is caused by our Digimon DNA going wild due to a mutation in their code. Professor can cure the condition, but needs a patch from each type of Digimon in order to create the vaccine. So to another fetch quest we go, but this one is much easier than the Digimon recruiting one. We only need to go to the meditation dome and talk to the Digimon using the meditation chambers. The data patch is held by Clockmon, who wants a Digivice in exchange. They can be bought at the dome, so it's pretty simple to get. Wargarurumon is in the other chamber and will give us its vaccine patch if we meditate with him for a while. We must then wait a bit while Akira complains at various times during the meditation, so you can't leave the game during this process as you must advance the dialogue, or monologue in this case. After about a minute of meditation, Wargarurumon will ask us if we're tired of meditating. We could say no and keep on just for solidarity, but it does not achieve anything else than wasting your time. Anyway, he'll be disappointed no matter how much time we stay, and will give us its patch anyway. For the last one, we need to look for a virus Digimon. Earlier in the meditation dome, there was an Ogremon using one of the rooms, but it's nowhere to be seen now. We can ask Angemon, who will tell us that it left the place with a tamer. That tamer is Kim, so we go back to the Device Dome and ask Kim for the virus patch, and she gives it to us straight away. We then return to Payot, who creates the vaccine code, and there, no more junk parts cluttering your inventory. We then go back to the base, tell the guard we have the vaccine, so he lets us pass, so we can distribute it to the affected. While talking to Vandar, the guard interrupts the conversation, says the Blood Knights were spotted, refuses to elaborate, then leaves. Guess we know what our next objective entails: beat more Blood Knights. That, while keeping watch for Ben Oldman and the archive ship, naturally. Well, you actually have to beat the Blood Knights first, since finding the ship is tied with the exploration. But before going to a domain, there's someone that can give us some information in order to help us find our way. If you go to the Tamer Club and talk with Esmeralda, she states that Joy knows Ben personally, so we just have to find Joy then. Unfortunately, she's into one of the domains, trying to fight the Blood Knights. Thus, with that new information in tow, we embark on a new journey with allies to find and enemies to defeat. It's time to revisit Bio's domain, who is now 8 floors deep, full of data-type Digimon. Centaurimon, the old boss of Bio's domain, now appears as a wild Digimon. talk about the demotion. It appears along your Wizardmon and a nice Dremojimon, the latter being the target for the next trade we can make. There's nothing much to say apart from that, so let's just skip to the boss, another Blood Knight. This one is very straightforward. High defense. Clockmon always interrupts our team's first attack, making the affected Digimon move last instead. Tankmon is very sturdy, and Dremojimon hits hard. Best to go after the hard hitter first, then it's a breeze. Upon defeating the boss, we pick up a part called Gyro Radar. It's not useful as of yet, so we just move on. We're going straight to the next domain, the Revisit of Web domain. This one is a challenging domain in terms of endurance, as champion Digimon spawns right on the first floor and strong combinations starts appearing on the fourth floor. At this point in the adventure though, you should have enough Digimon to keep your better ones for later floors, switching them in for difficult fights or floors. Fortunately, there's a bit of a breathing room later on as wild Bakemon starts to appear and they have no allies, so you could use those fights to use recovery moves, as long as you watch out for confusion. The last floor is a maze, cram-packed with Devimon team fights. It's pretty tough, but useful if you need a level or two. We also enter the boss room without the boss hearing us, so he keeps monologuing about a grand master plan. He realizes his mistake and tries to delete us from the domain, which, spoiler alert, he fails. Now, this boss is a real challenge. The key enemy is Skullgreymon, which is very bulky and deal big damage to a single Digimon. The Vidramon is also to watch out for. As I mentioned earlier, Crimson Claw's damage is nothing to scoff at, but since none of the enemies can apply status ailment, it's a bit less dangerous. Dark Tyrannomon hits everyone and is pretty fast also. So yeah, where should you start? Since Skullgreymon is pretty bulky, it's not a good idea to start with it. You should instead go for the two weaker ones. Damage reducing moves like Hornbuster or Dolphmon's Pulse Blast attack are pretty useful for this fight as well. This is where I decide to DNA Digivolve Donti to a new, more useful form. However, I made a mistake and confirmed the name change before finishing it. Oh well, it's no setback at least. On that note, both Badger and Beans are also close to their max level, as well as being on the verge to be able to reach ultimate level. So I decide to DNA Digivolve them as well and grind for some more time to bring them back to speed. Meet the new team. Badger is now a Mammothmon, Donti or Donunemon for the moment evolved into Quackmon, and Beans became old. It's time to finally enter the last mission target, Drive Domain. This one is another big challenge filled with champion level Vaccine Digimon. It's also the biggest one so far, with 9 floors to travel. There's not much different going for it until the 2 last floors. They are big mazes. The maze on the 8th floor has no enemies, just long corridors and rooms made to drain your battery. The boss floor though, is as big as the one found in Web Domain, but with Leomon instead of Devimon. They are much more of a threat, since if you fight them, you put yourself at risk of massive damage due to Leomon's counter properties as previously mentioned. With all the traps lying around, it's quite the challenge, and it would be annoying to have to go back to the city just because you lack the proper ammo in your toolbox, or step on that pesky return bug. At the boss room, we meet another Blood Knight officer that thinks he will beat us, so original, and take revenge, but Akira instantly claps back and shuts him off. That kid's got a mouth and is not afraid to use it. The fight is actually a very easy one. The enemy side has only damaging attacks, and most of them are nothing to write home about. Remember Vacuum Wing? That one interrupt Megadramon had. It's the worst attack to expect. With our team composition, it's a cakewalk. Okuwamon has one of the most useful attack in the game, Duo Scissor Claw. This attack hits the opposing team for medium damage, also lowering their defense status in the process. Since the game processes the status change before calculating the damage, this means that the defense lowering happens before the damage is applied, making the move even more useful and broken. Pair that with a moderate amount of MP requirement, and you've got a move that will stay useful until the endgame. With the officer's dreams dunked on, we go back to the city again and find that the mission is not over yet. We still have to find information on a lead to Joy-Joy's whereabouts. Upon arriving at the Vice Dome to look around, Kim intercepts us and puts us on another fetch quest. Reason is that she's trying to repair a robot she found and needs a Tankmon's power converter's data to help her in the process. You can even keep it once she's got the data she needs. One can either be found on the boss floor of Web Domain, but digivolving a Candlemon is also a viable option. Once we've come back with the target Digimon, she thanks us and gives us an XP chip, an item that can boost the experience of a single Digimon. Quite a nice gift, but that does not help us in our current objective, is what you would think. But completing this task triggers the event that unlocks the next step of the mission. Back at the city, we visit the HQ to find Lucky Louis pacing back and forth, looking very nervous. Akira asks what's up, but Louis seems reluctant to talk. He leads us into a vacant room and announces that Bertrand and Joy-Joy might be in danger. He explains that they were adventuring into another domain when they found Blood Knight's tracks. In a passage that leads even deeper in the domain, Bertrand and Joy-Joy decided to investigate, ordering Louis to go back and inform the team of their findings. Saying so, he gives us the weird part, which, unbeknownst to him, is a vital item for what will come later. We thus give chase and depart for Modem Domain. This revisit could be challenging if you don't have Fire's Digimon in your team, but since we've got Okuwamon, the ride is without any problems. On the 5th floor, Tyrannomon teams start appearing on Fire Tiles and they can become dangerous fast. There is, however, great partnership opportunities. Mud Frigimon has Sub-Zero Ice Punch and an assist called Armor Coating. Despite its name, the move raises the attack stat of one of its allies. It's not as good as Kuegamon's Scissor Claw or Dolphmon's Pulse Blast, but it's a viable move that could stay relevant for a long time. Another good Digimon to befriend is Meramon because its signature move, Fireball, is one of the strongest data-type Digimon attack. The boss room is on the 10th floor of the domain. At first glance, it looks empty apart of some traps lying around, and there is a reason for that. As we advance through the floor, we find Joy-Joy going in circles in a room, all by herself. Her behavior is curious. She spins around having the time of her life, but when she realizes we're here, she thinks we're a bad guy and starts a fight. Looking at it, seems like Joy-Joy's team will be a tough challenge to beat. But when the first turn starts, there's something that's not right again. None of her Digimon have their normal attacks. You would expect Raremon and Ninjamon to have their signature counterattacks, but Raremon goes down on the first turn without triggering its attack, and Ninjamon just does Mech Ray, nice Drimojimon's move. Monzeimon's move is an assist that weakens all virus-type Digimon, but uses X-Tyrannomon's attack instead. It still has its original move, but does not use it that often. Everything is weird in this fight. After the battle, Joy-Joy comes back to her senses. She remembers that she and Bertrand were chasing after an enemy Digibeetle, and that he kept chasing when she started having troubles. She goes back to the city, and we keep chasing after Bertrand. Seems like he didn't go much farther, as we find him sulking in a nearby room. The guy seems like all his courage was drained from him. Now he's lost and scared. That's curious for a dude who struggles to accept defeat. He mistakes us for an enemy as well, and starts a fight. It's another weird fight where the enemy Digimon does not have their usual moves. Digitamamon uses Pidomon's Mega Heal, and Tankmon has Friendly Fire? What is going on? Derumon has its original move just like Monzeimon, but also has Party Time that it uses from time to time. Another curious but easy battle. Once done, Bertrand comes back to normal and recalls that he was fighting an enemy before everything going dark, and conversing with Akira, he realizes he was set up by the Blood Knights. Unfortunately, his Digibeetle's battery gives out and must pull back to the city instead. That means the way is clear and the real domain boss is near. After a bit of searching, we soon find the Blood Knight responsible for our friend's problems. The boss has a device that makes anyone who hears it becomes crazy and lose their senses. However, we seem unaffected by this device. Turns out that the part Lucky Lewis gave us earlier has a neutralizing effect, rendering Akira immune to the effects induced by the Blood Knight device. The officer panics and starts a fight. After the ordeal that was the boss 4, we come on to one last battle before clearing the domain. The fight puts you up against a Mamemon, a Metal Mamemon, and a Gardromon. Both Mamemon have counterattacks, and there's a slight overlook we can take advantage of. When two Digimon on the same team use a counterattack, you can use a party hitting move to scramble the attacks. Only one counter will activate. The second attack will be triggered after the counter, but will activate. You can avoid one of the two counterattacks, reducing the damage or effect that you would actually receive. Gardromon is just a filler. It's fast, but it's not powerful enough to make a difference. With that troublesome Blood Knight defeated, our rescue mission is now successful. We can return our Digibeetle to Chief Carol and proceed back to the HQ, where Lewis waits for you. He thanks Akira for finding your friends and tells you they're in the room on the right, waiting for you as well. Entering the room, Joy expresses her thanks, but Bertrand tries to play it cool. He quickly gets put back in his place, as Joy does not tolerate his behavior after what took place in the domain. Akira interrupts her, as there is something more important to talk about: Ben Oldman's whereabouts. She then gives us his location, mentioning he refuses to move to the city for some reason. Well, that part of the mission is complete at least. We now have a new spot to visit on the world map called the Archive Port, and also Ben's living space. He waits for us at the entrance, and wasting no breath, Akira asks him all he needs to know in one sentence. Oldman refuses to tell anything, claiming that he can't tell secrets to someone he does not know, and that makes sense. He says that he will be the one deciding if we are worthy of getting that info, and gives us a challenge. If we manage to beat him in a battle, he will deem us worthy of the information we require. We accept and go to the new destination, DVD Domain. Fortunately, there's no maze to navigate. This domain serves only for the challenge Mr. Oldman gave us. So we meet with him and tells us we're less of a coward than he thought. Akira gets a bit offended at the statement, so Ben says he'll apologize as well if we beat him, and so the fight starts. It's much easier than expected, partly because we're at full power since there was not a domain to navigate prior to the boss. Oldman's team is nothing to worry about. It's a bit of everything we've seen so far. The only threat is Metal Mamemon's counter, if it's activated at least. Once we beat Ben, he is actually impressed by our power, asks for our name, and makes a formal apology for insulting us prior to the fight. He then formally invites us back to the Archive Port, where he will answer all our questions. Just before doing so, I pass by the lab to Digivolve Badger into a Deramon, a good ultimate Digimon, but not the best by far. We then go back to the Archive Port, where Ben announces it's actually the ship we were looking for. It is, however, badly damaged and unstable in this condition, so why are the Blood Knights actively searching for a piece of junk? No matter the case, Mr. Oldman also gives us the coordinates for Code Domain, a domain found by Crimson in his Tamer's years. It might even be his whereabouts, so we need to investigate. The location of Code Domain is not exact, however, so you need to decrypt it. To do so, we need to go back to our Gold Hawks leader to report our findings. Vandar will also decode the map given by Ben to pinpoint the location of Code Domain. We stop by the Vice Dome to upgrade our Digibeetle tire, and once done, we're ready to tackle the next stage. Do you hear that? A new track for domain navigation, and a great one at that. This also announces that this stage will be a tough one. Level 3 traps are waiting for us in mass, and wild Ultimate Digimon starts appearing in later floors. It's important to be properly geared and stocked up to be ready for the challenge. But I was too distracted by the music to take the danger of the domain properly, and thus I traveled the floors without a hitch. The boss floor though is one massive ordeal. There are many passages to choose from, and lots of them have Vademon waiting for you. I eventually find my way to the boss room, where Commander Damien is waiting for us to hinder our progress again. He boasts a lot, but we remind him that we already beat him before, and we can do it again, and so the fight starts. This time around, Damien is not playing. He has a good team that can knock the wind off your sails. Etemon can prevent you from using your strongest attacks. Ogremon can drain your MP on counter, and Cherrymon attacks the whole team with good damage. The best strategy I can come up with is to dispatch Etemon as fast as possible, while mitigating Cherrymon's damage. Ogremon is not a threat until you attack it directly, so it's the ideal target to beat last. After his defeat, Commander Damien loses his cool and retreats in a panic. Akira is surprised of Damien's behavior, to the point where he calls him a chicken and questions his position as a commander. What a sassy boy! We come back to the city and let the chief park our Digibeetle to go to HQ and report once more. Dropping by the Digicenter reveals that there's a new trade going on, a Garurumon for a Magnangemon. This is the first trade that I would say to skip, as the given Digimon is a bit underwhelming. It has a good healing move, but since I've got a Bangiamon in my main party, I don't need more healing assistance. At the HQ, we're intercepted by the guard who states another emergency. While we were at Code Domain, the archive port was attacked by the Blood Knights. Without hearing the rest, Akira charges to the port to check on Ben's status. On site, a tamer tells us that he is at the city, so at least he seems alright. We then go back to the HQ, where we get scolded by the guard for leaving without letting him finish. Ben is actually talking with the leader, so we join in on the conversation. He is actually fine, just some minor scratches, but there was a reason why the Blood Knights attacked him. They needed the Navi disc that was in Ben's possession, thing that they successfully stole. Turns out that disc contains the location of File Island. Yes, the same File Island from Digimon World 1. Vendara explains that File Island is where their ancestors come from, but they had to escape on the archive ship to the Directory continent when people lost to the evil prince of wild Digimon. This is also the reason why they created the guard teams, to learn to properly protect themselves and to eventually be strong enough to free File Island from its oppressor. It also looks like your team managed to pinpoint the location of Crimson. He is now in Laser Domain, and you must prevent him from going to File Island. If you talk to Bertrand at the main gate, he reveals what Team Crimson will have: a Skull Mammothmon, an X-Tyrannomon, and a Deltamon. Skull Mammothmon will be our first Mega Digimon we'll have to face in the game, so it's quite telling for what to expect in the next stage. It's now time to go and find the leader of the Blood Knights. Laser Domain starts with the recurrent trap-in-your-face first floor, but at this point, if you're not geared up, it's kind of on you. So I go back to the city, get the appropriate ammo, and try again. The domain in itself is rough. There's lots of tough fights early on. Rooms are big, and so is the number of Digimon that can be in these rooms. When wild Digimon aren't a problem, traps are. They are many, and they don't want you to succeed, especially in the later floors. Highest level traps appear hidden in cheap places on the 10th floor and are more of a pain than ever if your Digibeetle radars aren't properly upgraded. The 11th floor is a big maze full of walls made from big rocks and an extra surprise close to the end. Commander Damien ambushes Akira, claiming they are now arch enemies. He is back, and he's got a bone to pick as well. His team means business, and after a long domain, it can put the player in a bad spot. While we knew we'd face a Mega Digimon on this stage, Puppetmon was quite the unexpected surprise. It's not the worst fight despite what it looks like, it's still Commander Damien after all. Mega Kabuterimon and Red Vegiemon are more annoying in my opinion, as one does interrupt and lowers your damage, and the other will use a move that coats the enemy with poison, doing even more damage. Paired with the floor specialty, it makes for a long fight, but not too tough if you have enough healing means. Losing for a third time, the commander retreats once more, claiming a tactical retreat this time, when taunted by Akira. I'm sure we'll cross paths again. The last floor is not that tricky to navigate, but it's no reason to drop our guard yet, as some traps are hidden and could spell trouble with careless haste. At last, we finally meet Crimson, the mind behind all those Blood Knights attacks. He seems to know a lot about us, and says he wants to test us against himself so he can decide if our power is real or not. Now, this battle will test your power, and you'd better get ready to rise up to the challenge, because unlike Puppetmon, Skull Mammothmon is dangerous. It has a monstrous amount of HP and defense, and paired with Deltamon, both can hit our whole team, which can make the damage ramp up considerably. Not only that, but with X-Tyrannomon that can demotivate Digimon, it could make things go bad. There is one saving grace. Skull Mammothmon has an assist called Hyper Flashing that lowers the stats of any vaccine on the field. Since Skull Mammothmon is also a vaccine, it affects itself as well, so it might be a good idea to focus on the two other Digimon while Skull Mammothmon debuffs himself. And there it is, we finally beat Crimson. Or so I would say, but he seems unfazed by his defeat. He praises our power, but claims it's misguided, and tries to coax Akira into joining his plans. Naturally, Akira refuses, and thus Crimson decides to dispose of us anyway, until he is stopped by one of his officers, telling Crimson he is expected elsewhere to lead his troops for the next part of his objective. He then leaves, gifting us the Navi disc and taunting the player into following him. With that said, he departs, letting his minion take over, and guess what? He wants to fight. In a surprise twist, there's another battle to take care of before finishing this stage. Fortunately, it's not a difficult one, it's more for the surprise factor rather than to add difficulty, because it would be a dick move otherwise. Anyway, Tuscamon is a fast boy and Vademon uses a champion rank move. Otherwise, there's not much to say. They all have low HP pools, so Duo Scissor Claw sweeps the opposition easily. All their shenanigans riled up Akira quite a bit, as he calls Crimson a dog, and swears he'll chase him wherever he goes. After letting Chief Valet take care of our Digibeetle at the gate, we are summoned by our leader for the next part of the plan. Since we couldn't capture Crimson, we'll have to follow him on File Island. In order to do so, Ben Oldman mentions the archive pod on the ship could be repaired, but several components are missing, including the ship key. It seems like we're going on another fetch quest, is what I would say, but we got the Navidisk on hand, and we've picked up the missing parts since the beginning of the game, so all we need to find is the ship key. There's a new trade going on at the Digicenter. A nice Dremojimon for a Metal Momimon. It's a fair trade, but a skippable one as well. As for the ship key, the only lead we have is that a Digimon might know of it. Fast answer, meditation though. Talking to Angemon will reveal that a Agumon hoards valuable looking items, and by a stroke of luck, he is visiting the dome as we are inquiring about it. It might or might not be the same Agumon that was a shopkeeper in the first game. Akira asks Agumon if it knows about the ship key, and Agumon answers that he thinks he knows about it, but can't quite remember. It needs some time to think about it, so it's a good time for us to replenish items or to purchase some upgrades. I took the opportunity to DNA Digivolve Beans and Badger to Gomamon and Floramon respectively. They will grow up very close to Mega level at this point, so next DNA Digivolution will be an important choice. In order to make Agumon remember about the ship key, you just need to talk to Leomon at the Colosseum, as he has a favor to ask. Leomon is originally from File Island, so he would like us to give a message to one of his friends over there called Master Tyrannomon. After that, Agumon will be at the Digicenter, waiting for you with key in hand. We now have all the components needed to activate the pod at the archive ship. We're officially ready to depart to File Island. After a small cutscene, Akira and Ben finally arrive on the island, or so they think. Akira decides to scout ahead to confirm that they're at the good location. Doing so, he comes face to face with a huge dinosaur blocking the way to a village. After a bit of confusion, Akira realizes that this dino is actually Master Tyrannomon, defender of File City, and the same Digimon that we needed to deliver Leomon's message. He then apologizes for his slight demeanor and asks to enter the city, but is quickly denied entry since Master Tyrannomon is suspicious of our protagonists. The gatekeeper then issues Akira a challenge, claiming it can determine someone's content of character just by fighting them. Not backing away from a challenge, we accept and get the location of the challenge Power Domain that will clear right away. Power Domain is really short, containing only 2 floors. It's more of an introduction to the new kind of domains, which is just a new wall texture and another soundtrack while exploring. While Digimon includes all dinosaurs or Digimon based on fossils, a nice callback for those who played Digimon World 1. Although the domain is short, it is made to weaken you for the big fight. The boss floor forces you to enter battle with lots of Tyrannomon before reaching the boss room. Fortunately, the boss is pretty easy. Master Tyrannomon faces you alone and has only 2 moves: Blaze Blast and Zen Recovery. The first move is actually Tyrannomon's move, a medium damage champion attack. Zen Recovery clears any status ailment and stat change, but is essentially a free turn for us to attack. Despite its huge HP pool, this boss fight is pretty simple. After we've managed to impress Master Tyrannomon, it apologizes for doubting us and tells us it will let us pass in File City next time we meet. Now you would think that exiting the domain would send you back to the gate, but for some reason, the game launches you back to the main city on Directory Continent. What a detour! I suspect Chief Kernel is behind it all. Well, that's not too troublesome, as I have captured a nice Dremogimon a while back to get the trait for Metal Momemon. As told previously, this Digimon is kinda mid, but is a good fodder for DNA digivolving level-wise. There's not much else to do at the Digital City, so the next stop is the Vicedome's lab for DNA Digivolution. It's time to correct Donti's name by DNA Digivolving it back to Hagurumon. It would be the first of my Digimon to get a Mega level, but I made a critical mistake. Hagurumon has the most champion evolution out of all the rookies depending on its Digivolution points, but none of its Digivolutions can reach Mega level, thing I realized after sealing the deal. Well, at least its name is back on track. Now that everything is done, we go back on File Island to reach the gate, where Master Tyrannomon is waiting for us. We exchange info a bit, and we learn that Digimon, the elder of the village, has been captured and is being held at one of the 4 domains on the island. The captors were Crimson's group, and they apparently joined forces with the other evil group on the island, called the Evil Prince of all Digimon. On the other hand, File City will become your new hub when exploring File Island. Master Tyrannomon will now act as our Digibeetle valet, so no need to go back to Directory Continent unless we need to. For now, let's explore the city. As previously mentioned, this island and city are canon to the previous Digimon game, where you had to rebuild and repopulate the city by smacking some sense into the residents who were going wild to do bad influences. There are lots of Easter eggs for those who played the first game, including the soundtrack and the Digimon you interact with. There's also a big time lapse between the 2 games, so the city is but a speck of its former glory. There are 3 places we can visit: Digimon's house, the factory, and the laboratory. The factory is your Digibeetle tuning shop, and the lab fuses the item shop with the Digimon lab. There are new items to peruse at the shops, including the toy line of gifts, and brand new Digibeetle upgrades all around, but the lab is at the same level that the one at the Vicedome. Digimon's house has nothing for us at the moment, but will be relevant later when Digimon will be rescued. After buying some new parts and filling up my server with better items, we're now ready to tackle a bit of grinding since the new domains are more difficult than ever. Now that everything is in order, let's clear Port Domain first. Welcome to File Island Domains. Expect no mercy from neither wild Digimon or traps. They are here to make you suffer. Fortunately, I know what to expect, and knowledge is half of the battle. This domain focuses on data Digimon. Floors are big and populated. There are lots of rocks preventing passage, but no room is fully blocked, so there's always a way to navigate without relying on drill ammo. Always bring magnetic ammo though, as those electrospores are still dangerous. Bug nests are also a problem, so having a maxed out bug radar helps mitigate the problem. The trick is to only bring return bug zaps of the highest level in case a nest would block passage, to avoid getting our Digimon sent back to the server, which is the worst problem one could face. The other nests are a nuisance, but nothing more if properly equipped. I encountered a really bad layout on the 3rd floor, in a room combining an Electrospore and a level 2 return bug. I forgot to bring my bug zaps, but I was fortunate enough to keep my important Digimon in my Digibeetle. With battles included and normal game speed, each domain will take about an hour to clear. Ultimate level Digimon starts appearing on the 7th floor, about halfway through the 13th floor domain. They are a great source of experience, but are dangerous and take a lot of resources, so it's important to keep track of each of our Digimon's XP, so level ups and full heals can happen at the right time. The boss floor is relentless as well. There are lots of fights with Team of Ultimates and hidden Electrospores waiting to drain your HP, as well as a complex layout for a boss floor. Needless to say, the boss is also one heck of a fight. Hey look, we don't need to fight low-rank officers anymore. We're up against a commander this time around. His team revolves around fire specialty, and they are strong. Meramon uses its usual fireball. Flare Rizamon uses Kokatarimon's stun flame shot, which is low damage, but can paralyze. And then there's Skull Meramon. Its skill, Metal Fireball, is a strong move that hits the whole party. These attacks, combined with floor specialty, makes that fight one of the more challenging ones. Enemies are tough and can hit back. There are some efficient counters, like what I did here. Wamon's Tidal Wave may be low power, but it decreases the attack power of all opposite Digimon. This, paired with Duo Scissor Claw for decreasing defense, helps a lot in this fight. Status ailments, like paralysis and confusion, can be useful as well. Once we get rid of the boss, we pick up an Electroder, a key item that will come in handy soon. We restock at File City a bit and go straight to our next domain on the menu, Scan Domain. Unlike Port Domain, this one does not focus on a specific Digimon type. It's the same difficulty-wise as the previous one, but a bit less traps, so navigation is a little better. There seems, however, to have more wild Digimon this time around, so I take the opportunity to befriend a Vidramon and a Soulmon. Not only that, but ultimate groups of wild Digimon starts to appear on the 10th floor. On the other hand, the boss floor has a very simple layout and few battles, so it's smooth sailing up to the boss room. This fight is strategically similar to the previous one. Kiwimon has good damage, Woodmon can drain a part of the damage it inflicts, and Pumpkinmon has a strong attack that can hit the whole party. They also take advantage of the nature floor for more trouble. Fortunately, that means that the same strategy can be used on this fight as well. Stats down for the win. After the fight, there's nothing special to do or to pick up, so it's back to Fire City for some restocking and DNA Digivolving. Badger gets turned into a Floramon again, lacking any good matches. After a bit of grind to get Badger up to champion level, it's time to go to Diode Domain. For this domain, the main difficulty resides in high level trap placement. Enemy Digimon are all virus type, but they're not as powerful as those we've seen as of yet. There are a lot of max level traps in our way, including big rocks and electrospores. Those level 5 spores can hit our Digibeetle for 1000 HP damage, so it's fair to say that they should be avoided. Although I have max level trap radar, trap detection isn't 100%, so it's fair to stay vigilant even with parts fully upgraded. There's also a few special floor layouts never seen before, but they're not that interesting. Anyway, the boss floor is the 13th one and is not very complex or difficult, as long as our Digibeetle's HP stat is still high enough. The boss here is interesting. Our conversation leads to him dropping some confidential information about Crimson joining forces with Chaos Lords and Gaia? What's up with that? After that info drop, the fight starts as usual. Right away, you can see what problem we're going to face off in this fight. The possible confusion ailment. Pokemon will confuse our team if left unchecked, which means Digimon could have a chance to inflict massive damage to anyone affected on our team with Crimson Claw. Not only that, but Phantomon's move Shadow Sight has the ability to attack again if the target Digimon is KO'd. Mix that with the other two enemies and you have a dangerous synergy. Thankfully, focusing on Pokemon will disrupt the boss's strategy and make the battle much easier. One thing that simplifies the fight, though, is that Digimon also has Deltamon's move, Triple Forces, which does low damage to all the opposing team, so it may not use Crimson Claw when it should. Another easy solution would be to bring anti-mix-ups to cure the confusion stat. So, 3 out of the 4 domains are done and no sign of Digimon yet. That would mean that our target would be kept in Giga Domain, so here we go. Or not yet at least. When we enter the domain, everything is dark, just like when your radar gets damaged by traps. How come? What's the deal? Are we forced to navigate in a domain with just our map radar? The answer is no, we don't. There is a radar jammer set up by the Blood Knights to hamper your progress, but there's a way to solve that problem. Remember the electroder we picked up earlier in Port Domain? Well, we can use it to power up our radar. Once you reach File Island, Tekadona will start saying that she has an idea to upgrade radars but lack the components to tweak them. So, if we talk to her with the electroder on hand, she will upgrade our radar to a power radar, solving the jamming problem. Now we can access Giga Domain without any issue. Just before entering this domain though, I stopped by the lab to Digivolve Badger to Deramon again. Wait, Piximon? Cool, Akatorimon had enough Digivolve points to change its Digivolution path. That's neat because I was getting tired of having Deramon on my team. That change is a welcome one. Giga Domain always starts with the same first floor template. A big maze full of weird rooms and encounters. There's even rooms in a straight line just to put traps and confuse those who would try to navigate the domain without the upgraded radar. So yeah, that first floor is pretty annoying, but once you learn the path to the next floor, it just gets trivial. The rest of the stage isn't that much better either. Big rocks are everywhere, blocking parts of rooms, sometimes with only one tile to pass them. But there's an electrospore hidden in the seemingly clear tile. It happens often, and might get pretty frustrating if you don't have the necessary ammo to circumvent the problem. At least, the next floor tile will always be reachable somewhat, as long as you have enough battery to compensate the detour. Navigation is tedious and frustrating. even if the domain only has 13 floors. The boss floor is a damn spiral made to drain your battery as a last resort to irritate the player. We reach the boss room and the guy has nothing relevant to say, so battle it is. The only highlight of this domain is how easy this boss is. No special effects, no status element, simple damaging moves. Tortumon and Zoodamon can hit all of our team, although both attacks are pretty low damage, especially Tortumon. Attack reduction is very effective, so the only hurdle is their high HP stats. But that's not really a problem if they can't hit back. At last, we've finally managed to find Digimon. It first mistakes us for a Blood Knight, but realizes quickly that we're a rescue team instead. Our mission is complete, so we can now leave the domain and meet Digimon back in the city. At Digimon's house, we engage in a conversation where we learn that Digimon was actually there when the archive ship left the island. When we mention we're a descendant from the people who left the ship, its spirits are lifted, having confirmation that the escape was a success after all. We then inquire about Crimson, and we learn that he's now the boss of the Chaos Lord and its generals who destroyed the old File Island. Digimon knows what domain Crimson and the Chaos Lord are hiding in, but does not know its exact location. All hope is not lost, as some peace-loving Digimon still exists on the island, so maybe they could have the information we need. With that in mind, we leave the house in search of a Digimon that could point us in the right direction. In the meantime, it's time to DNA Digivolve Beans into a Seadramon, sealing its mega form as Metal Seadramon soon. Now, we're supposed to search for a Digimon who would know the location of Soft Domain. But the actual trigger is to enter a domain, leave and go back to Digimon's house. It will tell you it found a way to Soft Domain, but in order to open the path, you will need the rings of the 3 Chaos Generals hidden in 3 other domains. In an effort to help us, it also gives us the Adamantium core, the best core for a Digibeetle body. To install that new core, we need to upgrade our engines to the Dragon Engine. One of, but not the most expensive part to buy. It's a steep cost, but it's really worth the grind. That new engine has a whopping 3200 HP at base level, which is more than enough for the rest of the game. Once we get this info, we can trigger an earthquake by trying to leave the city. Akira decides to go back, and when he enters the Digimon's house, there's a new guest that seems to have appeared out of nowhere. Her name is Estina, but she does not remember much aside from that. Digimon tells us he'll take care of her while we're out on our mission. Before starting our crusade against the Chaos Generals, we stop by the main gate to talk to Chief Engineer Maestro to install our new core, giving a sleek new look to our Digibeetle and generating enough space to install all the types of cannon in it. Then it's time. Time to finally start the last quarter of the game. For the sake of not repeating myself too much, I'll skip the next 2 domains description. I've covered most of what domains could entail, and the coming ones are pretty much the same as the 4 previous ones, with larger floor for more navigation. While Digimon-wise, Patch Domain focuses on virus types. The boss floor contains many Skull Greymon's wild fights designed to wear you off before the big boss. Now for the boss, we finally meet with Chaos War Greymon, the first of the generals we need to defeat. It belittles us, and even goes as far as being sassy before starting the battle. What a Chad. The boss fight looks intimidating with its unique model, but don't let looks fool you. It's quite simple. Triceramon is the fastest and will mostly put an impervious shield by using invincibility on Chaos Wargreymon. Scorpiomon uses its counter, Tail Blade, which I don't exactly know what it does. The description of the move says avoid attacks while resting. So I think it means that any Digimon affected by the move will miss their attack when targeting Scorpiomon when it's guarding. I don't really know, I rarely used this Digimon. Chaos Wargreymon is a bit weird. While you would expect a Terra Force, it uses its ultimate move, Giga Blaster. I think that's because Mega level moves are ridiculously overpowered, especially Wargreymons, so maybe it's a way to lower the difficulty a notch. 1 down, 2 to go. No stop to shop, we'd go directly to the next stage. There's nothing to add in Mega Domain that's different enough from the last one to mention, apart from the fact that this domain focuses on data types. There is, however, a Digimon I used in this domain that I want to talk about because it's a weird one, Soulmon. This Digimon is champion level, but since its basic move is an assist, it needs an offensive move to be viable. You know what move it got? Myotismon's Grizzly Wing. That's good, right? Thing is, this move is ultimate level, and MP cost reflects that fact. It costs 40 MP, but Soulmon at level 11 only has 30 MP. That makes this Digimon pretty tricky to train, but it gets pretty useful for DNA Digivolution at least. The boss floor contains lots of Mega Seadramon fights, so can you guess who's the next Chaos General? Yep, it's Chaos Seadramon. It's the self-proclaimed toughest general, and it's going to take us to school. What a nice guy. Well, that's not the school I thought Chaos Seadramon was going to take me to, but whatever, that's fine by me. Mega Dramon and Giga Dramon can negate HP or status healing with their attacks, but only in the same turn that they used them. So they must be faster than our team if they want their effects to be effective, which they are not, so they are not very threatening. Chaos Seadramon on the other hand will switch between 2 attacks, Ground Stinger and Energy Blast, Metal Seadramon's move. The latter can hit for massive damage, and considering that it has a huge HP pool, it may prove a challenging opponent. Paralysis and attack down moves are useful for survival. After a hard day at school, it inspired Beans to become Mega Seadramon and strive to better itself even more. Then, after a bit of restock, it's straight to the last and hardest stage, Data Domain. This domain is full of vaccine types, and it's a bit different from the 2 others, in the sense that there's some mini-bosses to deal with. It's better to keep this domain when you're at full power and not training. First mini-boss is on the 8th floor and is Bertrand, again. This time, he thinks he's a race pilot. It seems like he got brainwashed again. So we need to rescue him. Again. Is this really our rival? This time, Bertrand has a better team, albeit not really that threatening. Well, there's that big Okuwamon sticking out like a sore thumb, but since this Digimon has low HP, it's an easy first snipe. Digitamamon and Ninjamon will use their usual move, and they are not that dangerous. So once Okuwamon is out, the rest will soon solve itself. When we knock some sense into Bertrand, he snaps out of it and realizes he's been caught in a trap again. Wants revenge, but runs out of EP. Again. Is he for real? A bit farther on the same floor, we meet with Joy Joy, who, guess what? She got brainwashed as well. Another simple fight. She's got Deramon, Monzaemon, and Starmon on her line, all with their normal moves, but each one has a trick up its sleeve. Deramon being the most dangerous one since it can confuse with Sonic Crusher. Low damage all around though, it's not even a challenge. After she gets back on her feet, we know now the reason why our friends are in this domain. The team leader asked them to support us in our endeavor, but it seems like there are more obstacles than help. Anyway, at least they're safe and back to heal themselves, so at least we can continue our navigation. On the 9th floor, I realize I'll need a bit more power to beat this domain, so I decide it's a good time to retreat and DNA Digivolve my partners so they can go beyond ultimate level. So it's grinding time until I get them back all to ultimate level. Okay, we're back where we left, and now the team is powerful enough to clear Data Domain. It's high time we get to it. Let's pick it back up from where we were. Since we've already beaten Bertrand and Joy Joy, they won't be on the 8th floor anymore. From 9th floor and onwards, Wild Digimon team starts getting more and more difficult to fight. Not only that, but they can clutter small rooms to force us into battles to try and hamper advancement. Running away becomes necessary to not exhaust our team before the next mini-boss is coming up. That's right, on the 11th floor, there are other tamers you need to knock some sense into. First in line is Mark Schultz, the guy who hinted us about Bio's domain earlier in the game. He got brainwashed into thinking he's number 1, so let's prove him wrong. Mark has a solid vaccine team comprised of Angemon, Magna Angemon, and Garudamon. Magna Angemon can heal, Garudamon switches between his Interrupt and Meteor Wing, but the worst one is Angemon, who has Sonic Crusher, so confusion is a threat. All 3 opponents have good stats overall, so this one is the more challenging mini-boss. Best way to go is to get rid of Angemon early. As you can see, I use interrupts with my confused Monzaemon because interrupts ignore confusion. Cheap move, but hey, it's part of the game, so it's fair. After a good fight, Mark wakes up and remembers what happened before he lost consciousness. It appears that the perpetrators are a bunch of Gekomon using their abilities to disrupt Tamer and use them to slow the others down. He goes back to town, being disappointed in himself for falling into the enemy trap. As you must have guessed, we still have another person to rescue on this floor. This person is Debbie, the tamer of the Dancing Palmon in Tamer's Club back in Digital City. Apparently, she's having a dance routine and her Digi Beetle, I don't know how it works, don't ask me, and invites us to join her. By invite, I mean force. Debbie has 3 Daytop partners: Piximon, Lilymon, and Blossomon. Piximon has Sonic Crusher, so you know which Digimon should be taken out first. Blossomon's attack hits kinda hard, so it's a wise choice going for this one after Piximon. Lilymon is just there because reasons. Once Debbie wakes up, she quickly retreats out of embarrassment. Understandable. So we should be able to get to the next floor, right? Wrong, there's one more person on this floor to rescue. That last tamer is Chris Connor, the guy who gave us our first toy plane at the beginning of the game. At first, he looks normal, but quickly spirals out of control and starts a fight. Another tamer that has a solid team. Chris specializes in virus types. His lineup consists of Phantomon, Meotismon, and Vademon. I believe Phantomon has Sonic Crusher, but it does not use it against me. You would think that Vademon is the weakest link, but this one actually has some power behind its attacks. Meotismon is not so bad to go against, but its Grizzly Wing could stir up trouble if left unchecked for too long. Upon defeat, Chris snaps out of it, and out of all the people we've rescued, he has the most poised reaction. He remembers what happens, warns Akira to be careful of the Gekomon, and autopilots away in a good mood. Cool guy. The domain is not clear yet, but at least all the tamers that were sent to support us have been successfully rescued. That doesn't mean we're done with the mini-bosses on this stage. On the 14th floor, we can find the culprit for brainwashing all of our friends, the infamous Gekomon. At first, it's not really interested in us until Mr. Badass Akira calls its voice ugly. This comment triggered the Gekomon, who ran at us to start a fight. Now this is a spicy fight. 2 Gekomon and a Shogun Gekomon. Surprisingly, the 2 Gekomon are the most dangerous ones because, you guessed it, confusion. While Shogun Gekomon Musical's fist deals high damage, it has a small chance to heal the target instead of damaging it, which makes it a weird move. It also has a high HP pool, so it's better to get rid of the 2 smaller frogs before dealing with the big one. There, no more ugly voice. Next floor is the last, finally. It's pretty linear as well, a nice finish for a tough domain. We then meet with the last of the Chaos General, Chaos Piemon. Pierromon? Chaos Piemon? Oh, whatever. This guy looks down on humans, even those on its side. It also thinks getting rid of us would prove that Digimon do not need help from the Blood Knights, and would be an opportunity to boot out Crimson. Well, he wasn't kidding around. Chaos Piemon has some bite to match his bark. Its teammates have moves that can hit our whole party, and Chaos Piemon's Trump Sword has high damage, so keeping our team healthy could be a challenge. However, attack reduction move works wonders to reduce the pressure, and focusing on the side Digimon first helps reducing the oncoming damage. Afterwards, the bigger piece will be easier to topple. That was an ordeal, but we're finally done gathering the Chaos Rings, so next up, we need to bring them to Digimon so we can face Crimson once more. It takes Digimon about 3 seconds to decrypt the ring's data, then gives us the location, tells us to be careful, refuses to elaborate, and kicks us out of his zone. Well, not that it's a problem since we were going to go anyway. Before making our way to the next stage, there are some other things I want to do, like making the trade at the Digi-Center. A Dark Tyrannomon for a Miotismon. It's a nice trade, and Dark Tyrannomon is quite available in Soft Domain's early floors. Furthermore, Beans is ready to digivolve into Metal Sidrumon, who we know will get the Energy Blast attack, a costly but very powerful move. I could grind a bit more to get the 2 others at Mega level as well, but I decide to go anyway because I'm beginning to be quite eager to reach the endgame, which is close, but we're not there yet. Soft Domain is the last stage we need to beat on File Island, since Chaos Lord resides there, and Chaos Lord is the evil Digimon that's been terrorizing the locals. If we beat the Lord, we'll save the island, so let's not waste any time. Traps are numerous, fights are plenty, but everything goes well all around until the 2 last floors, which are the 15th and 16th floor. On the 15th, we meet our first Mega level Wild Digimon, and they're not playing around. Best avoid them altogether. The boss floor has a mini-boss right at the beginning. Can you guess who? Yep, it's Crimson. He seems happy to see us, but all for the wrong reasons. Akira tells him he's going to capture him, a thing Crimson laughs at. This time, he is properly prepared. Crimson's team is ready to toss. Both Miotismon uses Grizzly Wing, and Venom Miotismon does hit hard. Pumpkinmon can also hit all our team, so the whole enemy team could sweep ours if we're not careful. Best way to go would be one at a time, but having 2 Digimon with Duo Scissor Claw and Metal Sidrumon's attack is also a valid strat. Upon defeat, Crimson praises Akira's power and tries to coerce him again to join his side. Without skipping a beat, Akira refuses, much to Crimson's dismay. He then escapes our grasp, but not before telling us he's going back to Directory Continent for the next part of his plan. That means there's only 1 hurdle left. Well, 2 actually. Soft Domain's last floor is notoriously frustrating because it's a long path full of acid tiles to step on. What's bothersome about it is that there are level 5 acid tiles, but the level 5 tires aren't available as of yet, so we must take the damage if we want to move forward. And man, I almost had to turn back to the city because of this. Fortunately, I managed to reach the boss room by the skin of my teeth. Good thing too, because turning back at this point would be unbelievably annoying, but not this time. So, it's finally time to meet the Chaos Lord. It looks like a modded Machine Dramon, and might or might not be the same antagonist from the first Digimon World. He decides to converse with us a bit, and we learn that this guy wants to be the strongest, to the point of eventually destroying its subordinate, just to prove it's the strongest. What a trash lord! At this point in the story, you would expect a tough fight for the boss of such a vast domain, but it's actually much easier than Crimson's. Chaos Lord's main attack is called Chaos Cannon, and that move can hit up to 3 times in a row. As you can guess, the boss has a lot of HP, so poison and defense down stats are pretty good here. Surprisingly, its damage threshold is not that high, so having a Digimon focusing on healing can be useful as well. We finally managed to beat all opposition. The Lord seems to realize that the union of humans and Digimon is much more efficient than Digimon alone. It warns us, however, that it and the Chaos Generals will be back, revived by an item in Crimson's possession. And with that, it expires. At least, we can pat ourselves in the back. The main threat of File Island is now dealt with. Back to File City, I dropped by the lab to put the finishing touches on my team, Digivolving Badger into Grand Quagmon, and Dante to Digimon. Yeah, I've got mine too. With that, we've got our endgame team. It's then time to announce to Mayor Digimon the good news. File Island is now free of the Chaos Lord terror, but it knows that Crimson escaped, and that's still a problem. The good thing is now that the island is free, the peace-loving Digimon will lend us a hand in getting a hold on the slippery leader. The only thing that we can do is to go back on our own continent and report File Island's liberation to our HQ. Oh, and Chief Carol will take her job back. Our leader praises us for single-handedly managing to liberate File Island, which was one of the reasons for all the Tamers team creation. Are we that strong, or are they really that weak? Weird that a newcomer could do in a short time what they tried to do in decades. But there's no time for pleasantries at the moment. We need to find Crimson before it's too late. Vendar mentioned that the Blood Knights started to reappear on the continent, and our Tamer allies are actively searching 2 domains in which we need to lend a hand. No worries, that's what we're here to do. But before that, the best Digibeetle parts are now on sale, and I have a lot of money to spend, so I go on a shopping spree before tackling the last Directory Continent domains. And then we go to RAM domain. Welcome to the hardest part of the game. The last 2 stages before the endgame will do everything to hinder our progress. They will throw the toughest fight, the worst traps, and even new floor layouts our way. But I'm undeterred. The end of the game is close, and I'm getting eager to reach it at this point. My team is ready to rock, and rock we must, because we are expected to be. There will be mini-bosses throughout the stage, and those mini-bosses want you dead. We meet our first one on the 7th floor, and he only has few words to say before engaging us. For the sake of time, I'll skim through the bosses without going into details. The first mini-bosses lineup is Machine Dramon, Piermon, and Digitamamon. High power, low HP. The second mini-boss lies on the 12th floor after a long trek through Digimon with Machine Specialty. Here, we must deal with Machine Tyrannomon, Boltmon, and Gardromon. High stats all around, Boltmon especially. Afterwards, there are many Mega Digimon in our way, but we manage to reach the last floor quickly enough. The floor is linear, but is filled with acid tiles and mines. It does not matter anymore as our Digibeetle is fully equipped, so they're not obstacles anymore. So, we've reached the boss room, and it seems like we're expected. Akira recognizes the voice as Commander Damien, who appears pumped up and ready to throw hands. The fight starts, but something's off. His team seems weaker than the mini-bosses we've previously encountered. The opponents are Waru Monzaemon, Etemon, and Garbagemon. Both Etemon and Garbagemon have the move Concert Crush, which demotivates the target. Waru Monzaemon will try to weaken any of our data Digimon. Don't misunderstand, Damien's lineup isn't bad, it's just not up to par after the ordeal that was the domain. After another defeat, Damien refuses to give up and retreats once again. Even Akira starts being tired of his shenanigans. Back to town, I decide to get the new trade at the Digimon Center, but this one isn't worth it really. Sure, you get a Magna Dramon, but both its move does the same thing and are way too costly to be effective. This trade can absolutely be ignored. There is something that cannot be ignored, however, because it will soon be mandatory. I am talking about the Colosseum Challenge. It's not going to be very tough considering we have an endgame team, so sweeping them all up at this point is a good idea. Here are the brackets and contestants. Bracket 3, Round 1. Esmeralda is our first opponent in the third bracket, leading the charge with Pedomon, Unimon, and Birdramon. She has a bit of everything, but in a small dose. She takes her defeat graciously and praises our strength. Second fight, Mark Schultz. Mark is eager to test us. His team is composed of alternative versions of some Digimon, Saberdramon, Gururumon, and Shima Unimon. His Digimon have some tricks up their sleeve, but can't handle our raw damaging capabilities. He's surprised of his loss, but acknowledges our power. Third fight, Joy Joy. Joy Joy is back, and this time she's ready for us, or so she thinks. Unfortunately for her, she's not. She fights with Angemon, Kiwimon, and Mushroommon. Questionable lineup for the final bracket match, but it's another easy win. She does not accept her loss and throws a tantrum before storming out. Leomon isn't even phased, gives us our rank 4 Tamer prize, which is a DNA up chip. Use it on a Digimon to raise DP level by 1. Neat. Bracket 4, First Fight, Debbie. Debbie opens up the fourth bracket, eager to get to the ring. Her team consists of Mori Shellmon, Jungle Mojiamon, and Togemon. Looks like a great team, but they can't survive one round. Upon defeat, she leaves, scatterbrained. Second fight, Chris Connor. Next in line is Chris Connor, who's not there for pleasantries. Guess we can oblige. He has a lineup containing Bakemon, Woodmon, and Soulmon. Scary. But that's not enough to prevail, and his ghost gets busted. Chris takes his defeat like a slap in the face, leaving the last fight to go through. Fight 3, Doug Duum. Look who it is! Doug Duum closes the fourth bracket and gave himself a nickname, one fitting for Dweeb. Akira has just the thing to say, as always. Man, these exchanges make me chuckle each time. Combat-wise, he leads the charge with Tyrannomon, Centaurimon, and Monochromon. Looks like a promising team, but he's in way over his head, like always. He leaves, dumbfounded again, making us a level 5 Pro Tamer. Leomon gives us a cool toy plane for our victory. Bracket 5, First Fight, Bertrand. For the fifth bracket, we meet with Bertrand, who's as ready as ever to take us down. This time, he has Gatomon, Flarerizamon, and Devridramon for team. Good stuff for sure, but still not enough to resist one round. He is so invested into trying to beat us that his defeat rattles him to the point of crying. Second fight, Sheena. Sheena is back for another try against us, but does not feel confident about it. she fights with Jezomon, Devimon, and Gardromon. We sweep her team in a round as well, and that makes her cry. That's unfortunate, but Akira tries to cheer her up, even though it does not seem to reach Sheena. Tough luck, as Leomon likes to say. Third fight, Mark Schultz. Mark is back for another Colosseum round, but this time, he seems like he knows he's going to lose, because he tries to bribe Akira before the match. Leomon denies him, and takes us to fight. Weirdly, his team is the same as in the third bracket, possibly stronger, but I don't let him show us. Out of the ring, Mark mentioned that the match was fun, but wonders how long they will be able to keep at it, as the world gets more and more dangerous by each passing day. The prize for getting Tamer level 6 is an EX driver, which heals the status ailments of one Digimon. Bracket 6, Fight 1, Debbie. Debbie is our first challenger of the 6th bracket, and hints us that the prize is quite nice, so we better win. She opens up the first match with a lineup of Mamemon, which is uncharacteristic of her. Needless to say, they got bodied. Debbie will need Palmon's help to get over this loss. Second fight, Joy Joy. Our favorite Spite Thrower is back for another shot, and apologizes for her last tantrum. But she only apologizes because she thinks she can win. She enters the ring with Angemon, Lilymon, and Etemon, a much more solid lineup than before. Unfortunately for her, it's still not enough to endure one round. Leaving the arena, Joy Joy complains to Leomon that we were too rough with her, but Leomon shuts her down and sends her on her way. Third fight, Chris Connor. Chris is back for another go, but thought he would go against Joy Joy. Hey, that was a low blow considering his previous defeat. No way we'll let this one slide. He fights with Phantomon, Meiotismon, and Megadramon. He manages to be the first Tamer to survive the first round, so let's give him that. Goes down quick on the second round though. Chris gets defeated again, and this time his confidence takes a huge blow. That's what you get for underestimating us. For our victory, we get a Max driver, which is the same as the EX driver, but for the whole team. Bracket 7, Fight 1, Brian Wiseman. The first challenger of the 7th bracket is Brian Wiseman, a high-ranking Goldhawks tamer. We're in the big leagues now, and it's time to show them we're not to take lightly. At this level, the matches seems to get interesting. Even Leomon's eager to watch them. Brian leads the charge with Garudamon, Aerovidramon, and Mammothmon. A good lineup for a first match. Needless to say, he still goes down on the second round. He praises us upon leaving the arena and lets his spot for the next contestant. Second fight, Karen Bates. Karen is the second elite in our way, specializing in virus Digimon. She does not care who we are, she's only there to win. Her lineup consists of Megadramon, Waru, Monzemon, and Tekemon. They have good stats, but nothing good enough to survive the second round. Unlike Brian, she gets upset when we get the better of her. Sorry, but that little kid has more power than you do, Karen. Third fight, Zudokorn. Last in line is Mr. Zudokorn, our friend and former mentor when Akira was still a trainee. Time to show him how far we've progressed since that time. No time to wait for Leomon, we know what we have to do. Zudokorn has Blossomon, Darumon, and Pumpkinmon on his team. All datas. It's not long before we mop the floor with him. In my opinion, Karen had a better team. Anyway, he gets a bit emotional after the fight, remembering our first steps and how strong we've become since then. We are now commander rank, one rank under the team leaders, so you know what comes next. For our prize, we get a power chips, which ups the power of one Digimon. Duh. We'll keep the last bracket for after the next domain. There is something we should do at the main gate for now. As we enter, a cutscene starts to play, where Akira wonders where Crimson could be hiding. While doing so, we cross paths with a sus tamer who's actually Commander Damien in disguise, being pursued by Estina. When they leave, Akira ponders on what that scene was about, before connecting the dots and giving chase as well. We can find Damien at the Colosseum trying to enter a tournament, but being denied since he does not have a Colosseum pass. We meet face to face again, and before he slips away, Akira tricks Damien by calling him by his name, and he answers, "Gotcha!" He manages to trick Damien into confirming his identity. Damien tries to leave again, but this time we can corner him at the Tamers Club. He has nowhere to run. He gets out of his costumes and tells Akira he planted bombs across the city, so he'd better step down. Fortunately, Estina catches up with us and confirms she found all the bombs. By the time she arrived, they were all disabled. The team guards then follow and capture Damien once and for all. Well, not before he tries to intimidate the guard with his karate move, which fails. Afterwards, Estina asks Akira if he knows anything about Gaia. By the description she gives us, it matches with the robot Kim was repairing in the mid-game. We then escort her to the Vice Dome to show her the robot. She interacts with it for a while, and a big twist is revealed. We learn that Gaia is actually a program that is out of control, and all the people we met are stuck in it. Estina is actually an engineer from the outside world on a mission to find the backup program and restore Gaia, saving everyone imprisoned in the process. After that big truth is revealed, Estina then disappears along with the robot, leaving Akira pretty confused. He decides to go back to the city for the time being. Or so he thinks. Nope, we're going to Bug Domain. This stage is also one of the worst. It's full of tough enemy teams made to wear you down, just like Ram Domain. That means there are also mini-bosses scattered throughout the level. The first one appears on the 7th floor and has few words to say. The knights we face don't have anything relevant to say anymore, so they all hail Crimson. This one has a Hyogamon, a Zudomon, and a Icemon on a water specialty floor. Nothing threatening, especially since beams can take advantage of the type as well. Same thing will happen on floor 11, but on a different layout. This time it's fire-based, so you can guess what type of Digimon the miniboss will have. Speaking of the miniboss, here he is, hailing Crimson as well. This one has Skull Meromon, Virgomon, and Blue Meromon. High party damage all around. Surprisingly, the 15th floor is another one of those mini-boss rooms. You know what that means. Hail Crimson! This mini-boss is nature-oriented, with Togemon, Mega Kabuterimon, and Woodmon. Tricky Team, Mega Kabuterimon being the most irritating. Now that every mini-boss fight is out of the way, it only leaves the 17th floor to clear. Similar to Ram Domains, we navigate to the boss, who reveals himself to be... Commander Damien? Hasn't he been captured? This team is intimidating for sure, but it's not too bad really. It's composed of Garbagemon, Rankuagamon, and Exterranamon. They'll try to wear out our team with motivation and defense down, but our Badger can do the same thing more efficiently. So it's an easy fight, certainly refreshing after the harsh domain we had to go through. Upon defeat, this doppelganger retreats, and so do we. Back at HQ, we get told that Damien is ready to spill the beans, but only if Akira is there, so we oblige. He then enters the room with a guard, and gives us the location of Crimson, which is in ROM domain. Also, before he leaves, he asks us to help Crimson, explaining that he is not the same man Damien once followed. Maybe the Chaos Lord has more control over Crimson than we thought. After some preparation, it's finally time to tackle the last domain of the continent, ROM domain. This is it, the ultimate challenge. Everything is cranked up to 11 and wants to hurt you more. It's also a 17 floor domain, but no mini bosses, only traps and cheap tricks. It's quite the ordeal and borderline unfair if your Digibeetle isn't fully upgraded and don't have a strong team. It's not our case though. Our team is self-sufficient without having to rely on level ups, and our Digibeetle is heavy duty. On the final floor is a direct straight path to the boss room. I take it as a sort of congratulation for reaching this point. Anyway, we reach Crimson, and he is hell-bent on finding who is the strongest. In a twist, it seems that he fused with Chaos Lord and its generals to become the ultimate being. It's not a threat at all. Certainly a head-scratcher for a boss at this stage though. He uses a move called Blind Attack. I am not quite sure of its effects. It hits hard, but I don't get the random attack mentioned. Is it because the next turn it'll use a random move? I'm not too sure, but what I'm sure of is that it can hurt itself with its own move. It sure can take a beating though. It got massive amounts of HP. It still goes down like every other boss though. After the battle, it seems like Crimson regained his sanity for a moment, just enough to say that he wanted to go to the outside world, then autopilots away. So he knew about the outside world. Is that a link to his quest for power? Back at headquarters to report our success, we get told that we should still be training, pointing out our Colosseum rank. You know what that means? It's time to get to the top of the Colosseum. This time the contestants will be the 3 team leaders, so it should be an interesting gauntlet. Bracket 8. Fight 1. Skull. Opening the competition is Skull, the leader of the Black Sword team. He fights with Hagurumon, Puppetmon, and Demidevimon. Weird opener if you ask me. I thought they would go all in. It's almost disappointing. Fight 2. Vandar. Next in line is Vandar, our own team leader. This time, our opponents are Mamemon, Metal Mamemon, and Prince Mamemon. Another weird team, but definitely an upgrade compared to the previous one. Still, they are not much of a threat, as all 3 opponents fall on the second turn. Fight 3. Cecilia. Last in line is the Blue Falcon leader, Cecilia, and the last obstacle in our way. She confronts us with a solid team composed of Digimon, Magnadramon, and Marine Angemon. They all have their roles, Both Digimon and Marinangimon can heal, but Digimon can also revive its allies, so it has to be prioritized. Magnadramon is the hammer of the team and can deal big bursts of damage. All in all, it's the most balanced team we've faced in the game so far, but they go down nonetheless. We are now at rank 9, or the highest rank someone can achieve. It's even higher than the team leaders, so that would make us the strongest tamer. We've earned right to the truth only our leaders are aware of. The path to the Kernel zone. That path is where we can meet the Guardians, the legendary beings that taught humans how to become tamers and the technique to handle Digimon of their type. In exchange, the humans promised to send them their strongest tamer to carve the path to the new world once chosen. That tamer has been decided to be Akira, who has shown a lot of talent and courage in a pretty short time. He takes some time to ponder, but decides to accept the role, wanting to know more about the reality of the worlds, both inside and outside. The leaders then confirm that the coordinates have been added to the shuttle port, so we just have to get there and the shuttle will take care of the rest. Reaching the port, we are greeted by the team guards, who, along with the chief engineer, were checking the shuttle to confirm it was ready to go. Once you enter the shuttle, a short cutscene will play and BAM! Welcome to Kernel Zone, the last point of the game. We'll have 2 towers to tackle, the first one being the core tower. These towers are much simpler to navigate than most of the domains we've experienced. But that music is pretty ominous, a sign of the things to come. The floor layouts are akin to a tower. Most floors are small and going in circles, so the ascension is pretty fast considering the core tower has 24 floors. The only exception to this rule is the last floors before the boss floor will be more challenging, putting more traps in your way along with tough fights to avoid for the most part. Digimon battles are also weird. The first few floors contain rookie Digimon, slowly getting stronger as we progress until the higher floor where Mega Digimon will be waiting for you. The boss floor does not even try to be challenging. You just get straight to the Guardian your leaders were talking about. Although there are 3 Guardians, we'll only face one, the Guardian of the team we chose at the beginning of the game. So the one we meet in our game is the Gold Hawk Guardian. It starts by greeting Akira before presenting itself as the creator of all vaccine Digimon. It will answer all of our questions, but only if we show our strength, which Akira obliges. It's a bummer this boss song is not used more than it was. It's such a banger. Difficulty-wise, it depends of the team you choose. Gold Hawk's Guardian is the easiest one, dealing only high damage. Black Sword Guardian is middle of the road using counters and status ailments. The hardest one is the Blue Falcon's Guardian, which has a move that deals half the HP of one of your Digimon, and another one that kills any Digimon that is not 100% HP. The Gold Hawk's Guardian has unique moves such as Karate Sweep, which does damage to all of our team, Energy Blast that targets a single Digimon for big damage, and an Assist that ups its defense 1 level. We still manage to crush the boss with Defense Down move, and X Scissor Claw shines in that fight. Once we proved our power to the Guardian, it praises us, claiming we have enough power to face the true threat of the digital world. the Overlord Gaia. Reality is that Gaia is actually the computer program that prevents humans from leaving the digital world because it went haywire, also making Digimon go wild and aggressive. It also parallels the info given by Estina when Akira led her to the robot Gaia in Device Dome. Everything is falling into place and starts to make sense. We now know our final objective. Destroy the faulty Gaia so the backup can take its place and restore the computer into a working condition. All of this leads us to the final stage of the game, Chaos Tower. That's it, the last hurdle of the game. Chaos Tower is much harder than its counterpart, throwing you traps and fights you have to pass through to progress. It's a bit shorter though, having 20 floors in all. One thing is that the floor size is still on the smaller side, making each floor a small challenge to navigate. Once again, the music for the last stage is another great one, almost motivating you to keep pushing till the end. We're so close now, there's no giving up. The boss floor, while having a layout, is empty, so reaching the boss room is simple. You can even see the boss before entering the room, and it's quite the being indeed. Upon entering, it babbles some stuff before welcoming us and calling Akira by its matrix name. Gaia praises us for defeating its most powerful creations, those being the Chaos Guardians and Neo Crimson, and confirms we're now the most powerful organism in the program. Turns out that everything was according to Gaia's plan. It locked human in the digital world, wanting them to become stronger and stronger until one becomes powerful enough to meet the computer. Then, it wants to fuse with this human to become godlike. But, in a massive turn of events, Akira, absolutely unfazed by this revelation, answers in the best way possible, proving his balls are made from adamantium. A supercomputer has been preventing you from getting out of its system for generations, and the one guy that manages to meet it tells it to touch grass. What a golden moment! And with this rich exchange, the last fight of the game begins. Overlord Gaia seems to be a tough opponent, but its first stage is quite underwhelming. It's pretty much the same difficulty as Neo Crimson, but with more HP. It has 3 attacks, but only did one while I fought it. That one is Phantasmic Bomb, a all-hitting medium damage move. It also has Titan Laser that does essentially the same thing, and Gaia Gear, a counter I've never seen. Once the first phase is done, Gaia loses its coherency, putting all its energy into its fighting capabilities, detaching his arms in the process, making them opponents in the second phase. This is the last fight. We've reached the end of the game. This is the final obstacle. The powered-up Gaia will fight with all its remaining might. Each of its hands has a single target high damage attack and an assist that can reduce either attack or defense of our Digimon. Gaia will also have stronger attacks, Phantasmic Ray and Tubular Attack, both hits all our team, the latter being a counter that can hit harder than the former. There's also another attack called Light Gun, but will only use this technique when both its arms are down. The boss also has huge amounts of HP and defense, but that's to be expected for a final boss. After a struggle, Gaia finally goes down, but not without a final trump card. At the end of the fight, a cutscene starts showing Gaia activating some sort of self-destruct sequence, trying to bring us down with them. Then credits. Wait, what? Credits now? What happened? Was it all for nothing in the end? Don't worry, right after the credits, a reboot sequence plays, implying that the backup data was used to restore the world without resetting anything. So it essentially prevented Gaia's self-destruction and restored the computer's normal function. Next thing we see is Akira arriving to a seemingly empty main gate, wondering where everyone is. Seems like everyone were supposed to meet back in the digital world after an undisclosed amount of time after the restoration of the program. He then remembers that the meeting point is at the Colosseum, not the main gate. Silly protagonist. Entering the Colosseum, it's still empty until the team guards enter the lobby from the arena, followed by the team leaders congratulating Akira for succeeding in his mission. He tries to brush it off, but he did save both humans and Digimon of the digital world, all while preventing a haywire computer from taking over both worlds. All of this is confirmed by Mission Chief Carol, aka Digibeetle Parker Extraordinaire. She's actually the director of the Gaia project, and most of the other people were project personnel. They were experimenting with the Digimon of this world before losing control over the computer, imprisoning them inside the digital world for its own experiments. After all of this, they can then resume their experiments, allowing Akira to become a member of the project. The Colosseum also gets repurposed as a research lab, as it's not necessary to hold more tournaments anymore. We're now free to explore the new world. Everything is now accessible, including all teams HQ, so you can have access to all the items sold in the city. Everyone is back, and we'll all have the flower to throw at Akira, and even Bertrand treats us with more respect. Also, entering the main gate, Akira meets the robot Gaia, which will now act as our Digibeetle valet now that Chief Carol is back to her original duties. We can now explore the world at our leisure, but there's a new domain that can be explored called Terra Domain. This stage contains 99 floors, making it pretty much an endless domain packed with all type of Digimon, even some that weren't present during the main events of the game, including 3 secret Digimon: Omnimon, Bihumon, and Chimeramon. There's also a small side quest where you can get the ultimate parts for your Digibeetle, but it's quite unnecessary unless I want to tackle Terra Domain in full, thing that I do not wish to do. And with this, the game is finally done. What an adventure! So, all in all, this is what Digimon World 2 entails. To me, it's still a fun game full of nostalgia, but I understand the ire that this game faced when compared to the other titles of the series. The game is so slow it becomes inconvenient. Early on, the game shoves a lot of mechanics in your face without clearly explaining what influences what, which can be overwhelming for new players. It's really tough to progress. Items and upgrades are on the expensive side, and there's so much to buy. Not only that, but if you're not careful with DNA Digivolutions, you can easily screw yourself over. There are a lot of bugs in the battle mechanics as well. Some moves are broken, while some are useless or not working as intended. The moves descriptions are not always right either. Some of the story pacing versus the game's progress isn't always parallel. The twists are great. The departure from the first game into a new genre definitely hurts the game a lot. However, having said all of that, I still hold the game in a favorable light. I believe the core of the game is a solid one. The Digimon models are of great quality for a 2000s game. Each model have their own special move and are voiced in the funniest broken Jap-English, and I love it. Exploration is fun, and while the Digimon capturing is a bit clunky, befriending, training, and DNA digivolving are fun things to fiddle with. There are many Digimon to find, and a lot of them have interesting digivolving paths to uncover. Most of the music tracks in the game are great to listen to, despite some tracks not even being a minute long. If you have time on your hands and want to take your time exploring the various domains, this game is quite the gem. Despite my favorable opinion, I still can't recommend the game as it is because of its numerous flaws. I feel it can still be enjoyable if played on an emulator with more quality of life options, like fast forwarding. If you would like to have a more modern and similar Digimon experience without all the problems, I would recommend Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, which contains similar elements that Digimon World 2 has without all the problematics and bugs from the PS1 title. The stories are pretty good as well, to the point that by the end of Hacker's Memory, I was emotionally empty. And it's a good thing. I'm usually pretty neutral towards emotion when experiencing a game. It's a good time, and there's a bundle containing the two games at a fair price on many platforms. So here we are, at the end of this massive look at a game that shaped a part of me while growing up. Despite everything, I still go back to this game once in a while without any particular reason other than I like it and I still enjoy it to this day. It reminds me the better moments of childhood, the time where I had all the time in the world to explore the expansive world of video games without a care in the world. A feeling you can seldom experience when stuck in the limbo of adulthood. But a feeling so important we should revisit sometime so we don't forget the value of just having fun with our games, no matter the quality. Thank you for watching.